the streets are marsh. Backroom deals swept into the dark. The fattest wallets mean the heaviest bribes. Lining senators' jackets with reason to lie. The macho stands of proletariat tones. Democrats hide their hidden thrones. Oligarchs swing their skeleton keys while the innocent starve in the land of the free. Whoa, 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 whoa. Buffets shown by broad country built on life. Fathers died for liberty, but full of Christ's oligarchy. Buffets shown by broad countries built on life. Our fathers died for liberty, but full of Christ's oligarchy. Whoa, 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 whoa. We're not in control. Whoa, 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 whoa. We're not in control. Deadly turn the middle class on the pole. Lucky sends the strongest sons off the wall. Hollywood balls bleach onto our eyes. Subdue the masses with terrorist guys. It's all you want, you gotta play to play. In this twisted game, vote it then you break. Resources are prey till the whole world great. The common tragedy destroys the commons today. Whoa, 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 whoa. Puppets shown by prideful countries built on life. Our fathers died for liberty, but full of pride oligarchy. Puppets shown by prideful countries built on life. Our fathers died for liberty, but full of pride oligarchy. Whoa, 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 whoa. We're not in control. Whoa, 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 whoa. We're not in control. They own the system, no compromise. 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 We're born out of hungry, your dreams were in our ears, and we pledged to fall promises year after year. But now we're angry and the Congress should fear. I'm not in control, but my goals and my fear. They fired their engines to platinum guns, but millions of arrows to blot out the sun. They fired their engines to platinum guns, millions of arrows to blot out the sun. Whoa, 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 whoa. We're not in control. Whoa, 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 whoa. We're not in control. Whoa, get back in line.
cereal, but it makes my teeth bacterial. in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, we did some things that were wrong. We did a whole lot of things that were right.
We've taken control of the oil in the Middle East, the oil that we're talking about.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create.
We choose truth over facts.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. The foothills of the Himalayas.
Television is what people are saying.
We are fighting Satan himself.
Journalists, ask them the question! Ask them! Ask them! Ask them!
Agreed that everybody wants to inside they should. Anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry. America's dead.
Welcome. How you doing today, Greg?
It's a tragic day. It's a pretty tragic day here in the crab family.
You gotta pour one out for the homie today.
Yeah, I know. As some of you may know, I got Elmo'd. The big Elmo got me. There's no coming back from this. I don't know what. For context, I saw a video of a guy, and
it was a pretty brutal video.
Yeah, and he killed 3 pit bulls, and I got angry, and I made a comment that probably wasn't appropriate.
Well,
regardless, this is Elmo's free speech Twitter. I'm bathing in it, practically bathing in it.
It's not gonna get any better. I mean, I was just talking to my mom today.
This is why it hit me so hard today, because I was like, we are gonna have to find something else. This is not gonna be like, this is an abusive relationship. As soon as I as soon as I got the email, your account was suspended, I'm like, my heart sank.
Like, all that effort, all that time.
I'm like, shit, I need to make another one right now. It was like there's like this like Twitter. So it's not only the Twitter addiction, right? But like, it's like the connection of like, there's a lot of people I'm connected with here. Well, you lose everything that you built from that.
It's a pretty
nothing.
Brutal. That would be a pretty brutal thing. Like, I haven't had my Twitter account suspended before, so, or maybe I think I have, just for like a day or something. I like showed you my alt though, but like
for just like a day. Like, how do you know
they can do it? Like, they can do it for a day, but you said you appealed and it got denied, huh?
Yeah,
that's not good. I mean, I don't know. It didn't say it was a permanent suspension though, because like the stuff that I see when people are like, your account's been permanently suspended, that means that shit's not coming back. But we'll see, man. Maybe
there's hope for the OG crab account, but we're gonna have to find out. I did this morning in dedication. Everyone, please go follow my accounts. Right, my handle's right there. I'm putting it up today just because that 1.5K followers is gone. And like now my join date is going to be September 2023, and people are going to think I'm a bot. Or they'll see the 2 and be like, oh. All my DMs that I had gone. Everything is gone. Oh man. I can't, you can't just what the fuck?
I know there is especially for you, because like, I guess now, because I've been with you, like,
you make stuff on this platform, you need there needs to be some you can't just rip someone's account and just take all their stuff. Like, it's
and you're actually
the world that we live in now. I mean,
you're actually touching upon stuff that I didn't really think about when people get their shit suspended, but really like especially from the business aspect, you're talking about like how you have all these connections, and we don't need to go into like the specifics and stuff like that. But the fact is that if you're putting out, now granted, like if you were saying something like, bringing truth to the masses
at home, it's really hard for me to like.
Oh, I totally understand.
I was really upset. I was like, this guy, like,
it's fucking wild to me to think about that. Like, the basically Twitter and these platforms can de facto just like isolate you from your life Like,
they just rip everything away from you.
But isn't it interesting? Like, I had never thought about it from like the business aspect. I just like, I was telling you before the show, like people get on and they're like, oh, I'm missing all my friends, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever. And
what if I have important messages in there that I need?
Yeah, and that's the part I didn't think about. I was like, what if like you have like business relationships, or you have like
I do.
I know. Or like us, where we're like, we fucking spend lots of time, and they're just like, okay, you need to shut up now.
Well, dude, all that is gone. It's gone. Rest in peace, the OG.
So you can't even pull up your old DMs or anything. It's just like you just get that one page that says like your shit's locked out. Yeah, that's fucking rough, man.
It's
I guess a good thing going forward would be to like archive every single video you post on freaking Twitter.
Okay, so from now on, I'm obviously going to be like much more careful about what I say, and then also like, I'm not going to invest. Maybe not invest some. I don't know. I really don't know, man. But it's tragic. I had to
because like you're absolutely right. Like if you
there should be a warning
on freaking social media platforms, like you would want some sort of like safeguard in place just to not get cut off from everybody. Like, what can you do? You can go on your profile.
Why is there no warning? There's no.
This is my backup account. Like, did you put that at least in your profile? Like, this is my alt. Like, make sure you put in your profile that like, hey guys, like if you're like originally I was Big Mad Crab, like rip, and then put the dates.
All I have to do.
I mean, that's what I would do to kind of like send it so people don't think you're a bot or anything. But other than that, like, fuck, dude. Yeah, use the same profile photo you used before. Like Big Mad Crab. It's like still the same stuff. So people will see if you haven't already reached out to the people that you were really concerned about at first, and like obviously we're in the same DMs and stuff like that. But like,
but on Elmo's Twitter. It would be
a bummer for me.
People who are verified anymore.
You can't what?
You can't DM people who are verified anymore.
You can't DM them?
Yeah.
You have what? You have to pay to be able to DM
people who have a blue check. Yeah. So all the people with the blue check who are following me, gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah, this platform, Twitter's fucked.
We got to get out of here. We got to get the fuck out of here.
I mean, we got True Social, we got freaking Blue Sky, like Facebook.
Oh, I don't know what to. Oh man, I don't know what to do.
The thing is, I was just thinking, I'd be frustrated to have to restart the algorithm because after having
I have to do it all. We're back to square one.
Yeah, dude. Because it's like I'm coming across accounts now that like after 3 years of like having the account and like kind of curating the content, I'm coming across people who say some like really, really, really like unique shit. And it took me a long time to get there. So I kind of get where you're going.
I know. Rest in peace. The big mad.
Pour one out.
In the arms of the
It's so bad. I said there's no way he makes it. It's sad, isn't it? Darling, it's so sad. It's so sad, darling. It's so sad. But we got him.
We got him.
You'll get him back, man. You'll get him back. I would blast like the suspension thing and thing just like
it's
a couple times a day. You'll get over 1,000 back pretty quick.
It's not even that. It's like the timeline. Yeah, Yeti. It's sad. It's very sad. We're in some different timeline now.
We got. It's like as we were talking about Telegram the other day. How like Telegram's like the only thing that hasn't really been like completely fucked. But like, I don't really like their UI that much. So it's like, I don't know what we do. But like, Twitter's not gonna get any better. Like I was seeing freaking Steve Poikonen of Slow News Day. He's like, I have over 25,000 followers, and I'll have freaking like 100 people follow me in a day, and it will still show like a difference between like gaining 3 followers and losing like 100. So like clearly,
I want to know like how people like Garland Nixon and like how did they get banned for like months and then they just come back randomly?
well, so wasn't Garland Nixon in particular, wasn't he banned prior to Elon?
Scott Ritter was banned for the entirety of
Yeah. So they came back once Elon bought Twitter, right?
Once, not for a while. It took a while.
Yeah,
for Scott to come back.
I remember that
on Elmo's fucking free speech Twitter.
Use that more.
No, fuck this guy. Fuck this guy. He's the fucking front man of the establishment. That's what
oh man, it's just like it.
And fuck all the fucking crypto and NFT.
I have to say,
it's all libertarian schmucks, and they just don't give a fuck about.
It's very interesting to me how chilling the effect can be for journalists who rely heavily on social media, because like you get your account suspended, it's like gone.
Where do you think people get their news from?
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I still feel like Twitter for like kind of like breaking news and stuff like that is like a little bit better than some of the other stuff that's out there. But like I don't know what to do, man. I don't know what to tell you, but it feels like just everything is getting freaking censored and co-opted, and like there's agendas behind everything, and I don't know what we're gonna do. But it's obvious that Twitter is not the future.
No.
Besides, he thinks he wants to have everybody pay for it, and like people will just be leaving in mass anyway when that happens. You know, any journalist, people like the journalists that I pretty much care about have already basically said that like the minute that this like Twitter becomes a paid platform, they're out. So like, you know, the writing's already on the wall, you know. So
yeah. Like I said, there has to be a way out. I don't know what it is, but hopefully we can maybe get.
Well, maybe that's something we figure out. Like
maybe this is temporary. I don't know. I'm.
Dude, I would be devastated. I have over 3,000. Like if that happened to me,
I know. Like how would you feel if you just?
I would dissociate and have like a moment.
Dude, that's what's happening to me. Right now. Like having a moment live. Like I'm literally like having a moment. Like I'm like, this is like all my account's gone, dude. Like imagine having your.
It's kind of like stealing it's like taking your identity away from you in a way.
I know, it's like tragic. It's like you know that like when they turn on the social credit system, which is going to happen. I hope you know.
Oh yeah.
When they have the social credit system and this shit is tied to your bank account and stuff, and they cut you off for good and you can't come back.
Well, it's like I was watching the ex-CEO of Pfizer. You know that guy. He was doing he was saying that when the like CBDCs come out, he's like, if you like are like stuck in the 15-minute city within like a 3-mile radius and you try and buy something in 4 miles, they can block you out. So it's like, what's to say that like if your social media content is like not up to standard for the government, that they'll just be like, nope, we don't like your online profile. You know, you're limited to doing X, Y, and Z. It's just shitty world we're coming into, man.
I know.
At least we can see it. At least we're aware of kind of how this is all coalescing.
I'm trying to detach myself from social media anyway. You know, like but like part of it is like it's
dude, we spend a lot of time on social media. Like that's like I get it. And the thing is like because of the way like we organize through, you know, digitally, it's kind of become a thing where we have to have. So it's like, yeah, on the one hand, like, you know, we kind of like rely too much on these platforms, but what can we really do? And the other, like, what else can we do? You know, so I don't know what to tell you.
Well, so let's get started.
In other news,
I'm going to be fighting through this. Let's just roll with it. We already have the notes prepared, so like we're just going to do it anyway. But too much. You feeling better, by the way? You're not sick anymore?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I was like, I literally went through like 3 days without getting any sleep. It's been a rough week, but yeah, man, I'm feeling better. I appreciate it.
So we just wanted to follow up on this F-35 story because they happen to put out even more propaganda about this. It's just really fascinating to me.
Wait, there's even more stuff that came out now?
No,
is this still?
This is the 911 call.
Oh, the 911 call. Okay.
So listen to this real quick. We talked about like the sketchiness of this before. There's a video of it before on the Indie News Hour, but check this out. This is new.
I guess we got a pilot at our house, and he says he got ejected. So he ejected from the plane. So
yeah, we just have
that guy sounds like
in our house. We just have a pilot.
I'm sorry, but that guy sounds like Latino as fuck. And this is West Virginia.
No, he was paid to say this. He was paid.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously. We'll play it through.
See if we could get some ambulance, please.
I'm sorry, what happened?
We got a pilot in the house, and I guess he landed in my backyard, and we were trying to see if we could get a ambulance to the house, please.
How old is the patient?
47. So we had a military jet crash.
It's so fake.
I'm the pilot. We need to get rescue rolling. I'm not sure where the airplane is.
They still won't say who this guy is.
I landed somewhere. I ejected.
How far did he fall?
I was at 2,000 feet.
Okay, and what caused the fall?
An aircraft failure.
Okay. Okay, is there any serious bleeding?
An aircraft? What is an aircraft failure?
It just doesn't. It doesn't. There's so many levels to this that
I
don't
can't
make
see
any
myself.
sense.
No, you look fine. You just focus correctly.
Okay, we're sending the paramedics to help you now. Stay on the line, and I'll tell you exactly what to do next. Do not move unless you're in danger, and do not
Definitely,
injuries.
definitely military protocol to have
if you get worse
an F-35 officer eject out of an aircraft and then have to knock on somebody's door to be able to get like a response team to him.
Does that
because
make
like
sense to you? Is it
no, like of course not.
Call for you to like when you.
So first off, like I don't.
You have to go to somebody's house to pick up a phone. What the fuck?
No, like there's multiple levels to this. So it's like obviously like so I don't have the photo with me, but I probably should have like linked it. But like the seats on the F-35s have comms, have communications, have radios. So like there's no like immediately when he landed, like he would have been able to contact military dispatch. Secondly, a stealth aircraft is basically a skiff, right? It's basically like a freaking like top secret freaking apparatus, right? You can't just freaking knock on somebody's door. Hey, yeah, like my F-35 crashed. Can I borrow your phone? So it's like not only like is it like that, and then at the same time, like an officer or somebody in their position who's like flying an F-35 is probably going to have a secured mobile device anyway.
You can't tell me that you're a trained F-35 pilot and your answer to a fucking like the hospital is an aircraft failure. That's your answer. What the fuck is an aircraft failure? Can you go into
skill issue?
Why couldn't you why did you eject? Why is there no communication? Why don't you have any calls? Like, why are you flying the F-35 in this airspace anyway? Like, there's so many things, and they won't say the pilot name, they won't say the hospital, they won't release any of this information. So, like, all we have to do is just ask questions. So, what else?
Have they even come out with any more information since the 911 call? Nothing really, have they? It's been like probably 3 or 4 days, and we haven't heard a peep about it, huh?
Nothing.
So either it was a psyop just to like get in our heads, or they found the aircraft in the bottom of a lake and didn't want to tell anybody about it. That actually kind of makes sense to me. That they're like, oh, we found it where it was. All right, let's just get the fuck out of here and like go on about our business and pretend that this never happened. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
well, in other news, this one's really making the rounds because I mean, don't be surprised. This is coming to your government too. This is not just Canada, but Trudeau's famous moment here with the Nazis. Unfortunately, he got looks like he picked the wrong guy. Really unfortunate.
Zelensky's speech received at least a dozen standing ovations. There was
whole
also
parliament. The whole parliament.
For this man, a 98-year-old Ukrainian Canadian who fought for Ukrainian independence against the Russians during the Second World War.
Against the Russians?
Zelensky's speech received at least a dozen standing ovations. There was also one for this man, a 98-year-old Ukrainian Canadian.
So you're gonna
Waffen SS.
So you're gonna tell me, like, after all of this about Zelensky's a Jewish person, there's no
it's all just a smoke.
I have arguments with people like all the time, like, oh, like there's like even my own sister's bought into this. My sister's like kind of like she's like a sock den almost, and but I argue with her about this. She's like, you know, there's Nazis everywhere, and I'm like, you know, Ukraine has like a really bad Nazi problem. No, it's not. That's Russian propaganda. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, she's like, yeah, Zelensky's Jewish. And I'm like, you know what? Well, like, we have a literal Nazi collaborator.
Well, and here's the other thing is that, like, know who was fucking silent after this happened? Fucking ADL. Why is ADL silent about this? Because the ADL is fucking fascist.
Or Canada too.
Canadians,
I mean Canada too.
Ukrainian Canadian war veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
Oh my God.
I kind of find that a little enough.
What an embarrassment. They had to have known ahead of time. They obviously all knew ahead of time. And so I've been trying to figure out, like, what was their rationale for knowing that, like, there's enough bright people on the internet that they would have picked up on this shit immediately, right? So they knew that somebody had to be a fall guy before they did this announcement. They did all this shit. Like they're just trying to normalize us being the Nazis. They're just trying to shove it down our throats.
We are the Nazis.
I know we are, but like it's not. It used to be more like Operation Paperclip, and like you had to kind of like learn about that stuff. And now it's just like, nope, we're the Nazis, and you're gonna like it. And so they just like put it down your throat. That's the way it kind of comes across now. It's like, oh, like, this isn't a mistake. This is propaganda. They're trying to freaking normalize it. And like you saw it on Twitter where people were doing like Nazi apologia for fucking, since that's come out. Oh, well, not all Nazis are bad. Oh, he's 98. He made a couple mistakes. No big deal. Like just the worst.
Oh, yeah,
the
worst
freaking the Vosh. You want me to find the Vosh thing?
Yeah. Because this is really bad, and I'm not. The only reason
who posted that
this out is because this is not going to be unique to Canada. This is coming to the United States, and I want to like make that very loud and clear, because this is just the result of post-capitalism, the result of the fall of the American empire. This is how things end up rolling out. It's destruction, devastation. A lot of like right-wing banana, right groups like start like popping up, and military run your government.
And what's also wild to me? Oh yeah, okay. This video is actually hilarious.
Chamber today, a literal Nazi. His name is Yaroslav Hunka, a Waffen SS soldier who pledged allegiance to Hitler, fought against our allies in the Soviet Union, and was complicit in the Holocaust. This man's a criminal.
Oh, there's a good.
That's Zelensky clapping for
There's a good Max Blumenthal.
Is that not?
That I'm gonna find too.
Like, answer me this question: is this not Zelensky clapping for a literal Nazi?
Literal Nazi.
So he has to know that this is a Nazi. There's no way
they all know. That's why I'm kind of like talking it through and being like they're trying to normalize it and basically do a fake out where it's gone from the Nazis being the bad guys in World War II to the Nazis being the not bad guys going into 2030. You know, it's like they're trying to reframe it because they want us to be cool with fascism, and they haven't. And like
this is normalizing fascism. This is what it looks like.
I mean that's kind of how it is. I mean, you remember
this is what it looks like.
You know, with the pandemic, they tried to put a bunch of stuff like they tried to put CBDCs and stuff like that down our throats during the pandemic, and there was too much pushback on it, so they had to kind of step back. And this is like the kind of same idea, like we're getting bombarded with this fucking negative shit, and people, if they're not calling it out and calling it out all the time, like we're gonna end up getting normalized by this crap. Yeah, this is ridiculous.
This is not a joke. So like, you know, I mean, I know like Vosh is like particularly like a relevant figure. I mean, it's just the fact that his audience is particularly young and I can tell you, like, I know like young kids who watch Vosh just based off like video games, like anime weeb shit or whatever. Like, so like his politics are attached to that, and it's like part of like the propaganda. That's like where the propaganda outlet comes from. You get like detached, like, you know, we like nerds from the internet, like to come into like this like sock dem, like ultra like fascist like
that's just crazy
ideology, which is Boschism, and this is what it looks like. It's apologizing for Nazis. That's what it is.
You want to read it?
Not a great look. I don't particularly care what a 98-year-old man did 80 years ago. If he was a war criminal, he would have been executed 75 years ago. Is he a Nazi now?
Dude, that's straight up just Nazi apology.
Incredible. This is like if I brought up George W. Bush. I'm like, I don't like, you know, forget Iraq, forget Afghanistan, forget all the wars in the Middle East. All those people, like, what is he a war criminal now? That's what I want to, and that's why they revitalized George W. Bush, Cheney, and all the neocons who were in the Republican Party just 4 years ago. They all switched they're all the Democrats.
I know.
Now they're all Democrats. Don't say that Cheney is not a Democrat. She is. She's basically.
I know. She's basically a Democrat, right?
There's no ideology. There's no sort of like dedication to any sort of issues. These people have the only thing that they have solidarity on is hating Trump. That's it.
That's pretty much what it is. I heard my mom say earlier today. She's like, "I'm leaving the country if Trump gets elected."
That's insane. Like that's crazy to me.
Like imagine thinking that like Biden's the lesser evil.
We already heard that in 2016 anyway. Like I heard, you know how many people were like all the, remember like it was trending like moving to Canada, like how to move to Canada.
Oh yeah, I sort of remember that.
Yeah, like they're doing the same. They're gonna do all the same thing. It's gonna happen again. I hope you're ready for RussiaGate 2.0. I hope you're ready for all that.
I've already been telling people that
it's gonna happen again. I hope you know, because this guy's now this fucking like loopy like demented, like degrading old man in the White House right now. He's down 10%. This guy's not winning anything.
Well, and they're even in spite of that, they're still saying like the Democrats are still like 100% certain. There's no primaries, there's no debates. Like Biden is the nominee, and you're gonna get it. Like that's what's happening. So like that's why when people are like trying to get behind Cornel West or RFK and stuff like that, I'm like, it's all psyop. It's all psyop. Like I saw actually from this guy I follow, he freaking posted a really old Hillary Clinton ad that was RFK endorsing her.
Oh my god!
Like it's so bad. It's so bad.
It got really bad. It was there's people. These people will not. There's no end to this. Here we go. We're already blaming this on Russia, by the way. We didn't know. It's not our fault. It's Putin's fault. Somehow this is Putin's fault. Watch this.
The liberals just think everybody else is a liberal, so they can use the same stupid freaking rhetoric with us 4 years later.
Think that this is the main rhetoric that we can just roll with this, and people will eat it up. Yeah, they think that this is viable.
Setting that this happened. The speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized. But this is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and by extension to all Canadians.
Such bullshit.
I think particularly of Jewish MPs and all members members of the Jewish community across the country who are celebrating or commemorating Yom Kippur today. I think it's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and continue our steadfast.
It's Russian disinformation now.
And here's the this is what I wanted to say about this guy. Like, this Nazi was not just a Nazi. This guy was not just a Nazi. He was literally SS. He did. So Max Blumenthal brought up. I don't have the tweet, but he was like, so this guy was part of the Waffen SS that actually did the Holocaust of bullets, and they killed so many people so indiscriminately that even Himmler was like, okay, we got to use Zyklon B now. Like, this is too much. It was too nasty. So like, it's not just another Nazi. Like, he was like a real like OG piece of shit.
It's bad. This is not a joke. Like, people wanted to I really want to take this as seriously as possible, and I want people to understand the veracity, like what this entails. Is like this is really the
normalization of fascism.
The coming of fascism to the West. This is the only option that we have. What else are they going to do to maintain control? They don't have the currency. They don't have the backup. And so, like,
that's the thing.
Let me dive into Yugoslavia. Like, I want to tie this into like with the Nazi stuff, because the same exact like Naziization that's happening in Ukraine is very similar to like the Balkan situation. You see like all these like Nazi groups popping up.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of want to tie those together. Let's
do it then.
Yeah, let's roll into that first.
Cool.
Steamroll.
Yeah, because I'm not terribly familiar with that region, so I'm interested in what you're going down with that as well.
Well, I remember I did a show with like Willie Bragg or something talking about this, but like I am a self-proclaimed Titoist, I guess, and that's like probably like a form of communism that like exists. It's like distinct from Stalinism in the USSR and like different like market ways, which I think you'll find interesting. Like I also like want to like approach this segment in like a kind of like a Marxian dialectic approach, and like how we like approach communism in different countries. But let me pull up the.
Cool. Yeah, I'm assuming some of your links might be kind of dead now, huh? Because they were tied to your freaking old Twitter account. Maybe you're pulling up the video.
No. I just have. So shout out to Cliff Karenberg. I mean, he writes a lot on Yugoslavia. I don't know if he has any like particular relation. Both my parents are. I mean, my grandfather was in the Yugoslav partisan. I mean, obviously he was a chef. He wasn't like killing people or whatever. But like a ship in he was like a chef in like the Navy or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But these are new declassified files that show the propaganda value for British spies, and there's like the basically what we were sold on a lot of what we were sold on. Yeah, Kit is in Serbia. So I'm not sure does he have any like particular relation? I'm not totally familiar with his background, but that's cool. That's cool either way.
So he's like on the ground.
So Kosovo is like a very heated area, especially ever since 1999. So I want to make it clear, like the Kosovo like alliance for like there's like a Kosovo defense force. It's basically like a NATO occupies part of Serbia. Like to this day,
right?
Troops with their own troops. It's like a Kosovo defense force. They sit.
Well, that's
there
what I thought. That's kind of what Kosovo. That's why I said like I'm not very familiar with what's going on there.
Like,
so Kosovo, that's kind of how I saw Kosovo.
So like the relationship is similar to the Taiwan and China situation, where like there's a lot of background to Kosovo being in Serbia and like for thousands of years, and they've been holding on to that land for like a while now, and you just declare it as like just have some other organization come in and declare it as independent that's not technically like their business. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
like
100%.
us like arming Taiwan and stuff like that. Like, it's like, why is that any of our business? It becomes interesting because like, they tried to frame this war in the sense that like this was because of a collapse of ethnic tensions, because Yugoslavia was. Let me get started with reading this. This is declassified files from the Information Research Department, British Intelligence, which is a domestic and foreign psychological warfare unit staffed by diplomats, information operations specialists, and spies founded in 1948, which its mission was to spread the ceaseless deluge of outright lies and distorted facts among journalists working at major news outlets, as well as every other available channel.
Just like the OG trolls.
So this is really like,
and that's pre MK Ultra. That's 1948. Jesus.
Oh yeah, and I want to like, I want like, again, like approaching this segment, I want people to like to keep in mind BRICS, like the relationship to like Ukraine, and like U.S. empire.
Right.
Like have like a Marxian dialectic to this, like imperialist, like so analysis. So Cold War era Yugoslavia was not a country of global capitalism, typically continents not aligned, formally a communist confederation comprised of multiple regions and ethnicities. Intermarriage and multiculturalism were actively encouraged by the state. It's a mixed market socialist economy for the most part with success. Living standards were high for all. Education, healthcare, housing, income. 1 month's paid vacation per every year. When was the last time anyone in this country got a paid month of vacation? Fuck it, I'd give up I'll give up my Twitter account right now for a 1 month paid vacation. Are you kidding me?
I know, right?
That's
Wouldn't
great.
think twice about it.
And much more besides all were considered human rights, which were the entire population enjoyed by law. The U.S. empire temporarily and begrudgingly not only tolerated all this, but granted Yugoslavia enormous indulgences, including sizable aid and preferential treatment in trade. The reason was simple, and that was because Belgrade's reputation of the Soviet Union and its fruitful alternative economic and political model, which was enormously useful geopolitically. And so I want to connect this. So there's actually a great book on this, and a speech by none other than Michael Parenti, who has been on this since 1999. Let me pull up the video now.
So, okay, and pardon my ignorance, but Belgrade is Serbia.
No, ask questions. Go ahead. Yeah, not a lot of people know about this. Like, I want people to like, because I feel like people should like we should be talking about this like in a Marxian like.
Yeah.
analysis.
So the understanding that I had so far.
The relationship between the USSR and Belgrade in a second, but like, what were you going to say?
Okay, because that's kind of what I was trying to understand.
Yeah.
So like, obviously, it makes sense why the U.S. would want to like improve trade with Serbia if they repudiate the USSR. Like that makes sense to me.
So the major split comes from. Here's the video. Let's watch Michael Parenti describe the relationship in a second, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Hold this up. Let me see the timestamp.
It's just like it's like an area of the world that I'm so unfamiliar with.
Not a lot of people know. Not a lot of people know.
Also, while you're pulling that up, thanks.
The only
thanks,
reason
George Bosch, I'm gonna check that out because I've just had a hunger for knowledge since I've been
Balkan
like,
Insight
waking up to this.
Balkan Insight too.
Balkan Insight, cool.
Yeah. So this is so check this out. This is Michael Parenti in 1999. This is like right after the bombings, right?
Jesus.
So like
they're all around, ready to pound. Stabilization, sabotage, propaganda, terror, drug trafficking, torture, and death squads in Latin America, Asia, Africa, and Europe. Why is it now suddenly so impelled by humanitarian concerns for the Albanians in Kosovo? Is that why we're in Yugoslavia? Is it humanitarian compassion that compels U.S. forces to have bombed 4 countries in the last 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
Is it humanitarian concern that the U.S. is involved in proxy wars in Angola, Colombia, and various other countries? If it's oppressed minorities U.S. leaders are worried about, why doesn't Clinton bomb the Turkish people for what their leaders have been doing to the Kurds? Why doesn't he? I mean, it would be...
Here Parenti's going to describe the relationship of, like, basically it's between imperialists, like the people who prop up the subjugation of lower classes, like landlords and like big pharma, the MIC, and then there's the diplomats like CIA, like the president, whatever, who actively like push this to operate on an agenda. Right. So I wanted to play this because Parenti says something really funny.
Crazy and irrational to bomb people in Turkey, to bomb the ordinary people because of what they're doing. But that's what we're doing. That's what is happening in Yugoslavia. Why don't we bomb the Indonesians for killing over 200, because their generals killed over 200,000 East Timorese? What about bombing Israel for what it's done to the Palestinians?
Yep.
What about bombing the Czech Republic for the way it has mistreated the Romani, or called gypsies here in our country? What about bombing the Guatemalan people? Let's go bomb Guatemala City for the systematic slaughter of tens of thousands of Mayan villages all over Guatemala. In fact, the U.S. wouldn't ever think of bombing them. The U.S., in most of those cases, Turkey, Indonesia, Guatemala, gave them aid, gave them guns, gave them training, is totally complicit with those horrible atrocities. Why doesn't he bomb Great Britain for oppressing the Catholic minority in Northern Ireland? Go bomb his girlfriend, Tony Blair. Tony Blair is Bill Clinton in drag. Look closely at it.
Imagine making that joke today. Today, this is 1999.
No, he'd be canceled.
You'd be canceled immediately if you made that joke. But that was
so. There's a couple good points. Is there more that you wanted to play? I'll let you play some more if there was.
Yeah, let me.
He makes some good points about propaganda, which definitely want to.
Yeah, and we operate in governments all around the world, and it doesn't even necessarily matter whether like it's like a revolutionary like Marxist government or like is super like a right wing like Islamic government like Saddam Hussein, like that's our guy, our boy, the CIA, and as soon as we turned on him, that's like when he was giving out free healthcare. He was trying to get a better deal on the oil, on the big 7 oil companies. Like it's like you have to start to question like what's the relationship between like regular people and capital, and why can't the U.S. tolerate any sort of like economic independence? Like why can't this happen? And this is why I want you to keep BRICS in mind. Like why Yugoslavia is a failed Marxist experiment.
Right. And I think just really quick, he brought up some good points about, because like Bush years later, right after 9/11, I think we even have like a clip in the Truther stream where Bush is saying like, oh, we got to help the Afghan women and children. And the Afghan Women and Children Act was our declaration of war in Iraq or Afghanistan. So, and then of course, I know Parenti wrote, what was the book that he wrote on propaganda? I forget what it was called, but Chomsky wrote Manufacturing Consent, and he brings up the point about kind of the worthy and unworthy victims.
Yeah, that's
where he's talking about like, oh, well, you bomb all these countries, why not bomb these ones too? And he's just showing the kind of hypocrisy and kind of like this nihilism that exists in our kind of like political system, I guess.
He actually calls out Chomsky in the speech. He says like, Chomsky called he called him the monstrous Milosevic or something like that. There was a big like push on the demonize these Serbians, and like I'm, like my parents are Croatian. Like I can tell you there was atrocities on all sides. Like my grandparents had to see Bosnians getting buried in fucking fields of
it's rough.
It's fucking war is ugly, and I'm sorry, but like show me a war that doesn't have atrocities. Show me a war that doesn't have like a rape or something like that. Like these things like happen in pockets, but that doesn't make it like necessarily like the policy of these countries. There's no reason to like distinguish them into like we
got to look at the bigger picture. Yeah.
Let's have Parenti explain the concept of Yugoslavia here.
Yugoslavia, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, was built on an idea, as Ramsey Clark said. Very few countries are actually built on an idea. The idea was that the southern Slavs would not remain weak, divided people falling out among themselves or falling prey to some imperialist outsider. That they would join together and they would have a territory that was large enough and strong enough to become a viable nation with its own development. And sure enough, after World War II, multi-ethnic socialist Yugoslavia was a post-war industrial power, a viable nation, and an economic success. Between 1960 and 1980, it had one of the most vigorous growth rates, a decent standard of living, free medical care and education, guaranteed right to a job, 1 month free vacation with pay. Oh, when was the last time I had a month vacation? Oh, I can't remember. Affordable public transportation, housing and utilities. Literacy rate over 90%. Life expectancy was 72 years. Most of the economy was in the public, not-for-profit sector. Now, such a country is a kind that global capitalism normally would not tolerate. Still, Yugoslavia was allowed to exist for some 45 years because it was seen as a buffer to the Soviet bloc, the Warsaw Pact nations. At the same time, efforts were made to undermine the socialistic features of Yugoslavia's economy.
There you go. Okay.
So like I want to point out where the split comes from here, and like the reason why. So like the reason why Yugoslavia exists, actually the big Marxist like critic of Yugoslavia is all the IMF loans and all the borrowing from the West. So like basically, what Tito did was he played the Cold War like a fiddle. He borrowed money from both the USSR,
racked up a ton of debt, and then told him to kiss his ass.
Well, like when your country is ravaged, like
I mean, Castro did the same thing, didn't he?
Yeah, no, exactly. Like so, like this is like the big criticism, but like actually the big split between Tito and Stalin is over like leftist collectivism. So basically, Stalin did the USSR did some review or something. They put out some review of Yugoslavia's communism. They said it was poor because of the way that Tito was operating the agricultural farms. So basically, Stalin argued his argument was it was a Leninist principle in order to have the state expropriate all of these small farms, make it all full, part of the state, and have a full system. What Tito did instead was he let all these small farmers and all these small businesses keep all their farms, and he just operated them as a co-op altogether, essentially.
Okay, so then I guess in the comments, Rib George Habash, that's kind of right then, because that's what happened in Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they just gave out the land to the people and let them kind of be sharecroppers, right?
Yeah. So it's a unique form of sort of market socialism. This is I think why it's important that context.
100%, because I didn't know that kind of ideology about Yugoslavia at all. So the fact that it's we'll let them do socialism for half a century and then we'll come in. Oh, it can't have too much of a good thing. You're starting to make us look bad.
Yeah, I mean, so that's why Tito here he was able to get big money from not only from the United States but also from Russia, and that's how they built the industrial base for the most part. But it as both Kit and Parenti just described, it was a thriving economy. They both listed the same exact things: free healthcare. I can tell you for sure that my ancestors, my great grandparents, they couldn't fucking imagine healthcare. Are you serious? They were dirt poor. These people were broke. Right. These are third world countries we're talking about. And then suddenly, now communism doesn't look so bad anymore because these people had a right to live. and they were able to live together. Notice like how when things are going good, when people are like actually thriving, they live like a decent like environment, they are able to live together and not there's like a relationship between like there's an
less
interesting
conflict,
like race and class here. Yeah, I know, but like can you imagine like if people in the United States, do you think there would be more or less racism in the United States if people were well off, if they had health care, if they had a right to a job, if they had, you know, a child like time off?
It's like the thing. It's what is that quote? Or I don't know if it's a quote, more of like a truism, but it's basically like your material conditions determine like your actions, and so as your material conditions improve, you're less likely to do these kind of like violent things, less likely to do these kind of like unstable things, less likely to be depressed. You know, there's just like millions of things. Like you take care of people and they don't have to worry about like where they're sleeping, they don't have to worry about what they're eating, they don't have to worry about like what's happening next week. Like they're able to actually like focus on their own lives. Yeah, like when that improves, they're less likely to lash out and try and focus their frustrations on, you know, a race or a class or whatever.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me.
Listen, this is a little bit of quiz.
And Stalin didn't like each other very much. This led to very tense relations between Yugoslavia and the USSR. And Stalin had an idea on how to fix this problem. In fact, he sent several assassins to get rid of Tito, but the Yugoslavs caught them all, and Tito sent a dear message to Stalin. Quote, "Stop sending people kill me. If you don't stop, I will send one to Moscow, and they won't have to send another." End of quote. But Stalin knew, and he even had a plan to inject Tito with the bubonic plague. However, Stalin died. Tito and Stalin didn't like each other very much. This led to very tense relations between Yugoslavia.
But you died. But there's obviously like so like when we talk about like war and like imperialism, like a lot of this is like a lot of this is about a lot of these wars that occur at the same time, like Ukraine, for instance. This is an economic war. It's not they're all of the wars that happen are tied purely to the interest of capital. And that
pretty much at that, well, with our
I'm gonna make that
mode of
point.
production, I would say.
Because everyone who did this like profited off of it.
I would agree with you on that.
I'm gonna read a little bit more from Kit here.
I mean, I was thinking about the other day when I was like reading that report. It's like you know, they're pretty much the US, because our defense budget is like over 50% of our gross domestic product. Like you can't just shut that shit down at this point. You know, even a drop of like 5% of the war budget would actually have a negative impact on our economy for like a very significant period of time, like 5 or 10%. If like a president was like, I want to chop the defense budget by 10%, that would be really like it'd have a detrimental effect on our economy for a period of time until they figured out how to offset that. So yeah, there's definitely a huge financial motivator there that people don't really consider.
I want people to pay attention to the language here. Does this sound like a country that fell apart through like ethnic tensions, or was this a comprehensive Western intelligence program? It seems like there's a lot of like economic ideological ties here. Listen to this. The question of whether Yugoslavia should be used as IRD material. So one British spy suggested a country by country approach. They weren't very sure about this. They wanted to they weren't sure of how messy this was going to be originally at first, so they weren't sure about going in the West, that is. But in a country such as Guinea that is already to some extent under some communist influence, considers it would be different from like the Congo, where everyone else is, well, guess what type of government will eventually emerge. Another concurred, stating that there would be considerable advantage to giving as wide publicity as possible to Yugoslavia's freer economic organization over the methods of the Eastern Bloc regimes. They suggested IRD to prepare comparative studies to inform the BBC East European.
Of course, there you go.
Accordingly. Continuing Yugoslav economic success, particularly in agriculture, is a theme that would be a greater play in countries behind the Iron Curtain. The aim would be to show that Yugoslavia, by adopting an agricultural system which is both politically and economically heretical and which has been violently criticized in the Soviet bloc, has increased agricultural productivity far faster than any other communist country, which is true. Russia and the satellites have gone to very great lengths to suppress this information in their own countries. And there was nonetheless hesitancy among the British spies about promoting Yugoslavia's accomplishments because of the risk of actively promoting communism, which they wanted, which they were there to destroy.
It's all anti-communist shit. Yeah.
No, this is we're talking about literally Western intelligence in operating within another country, within separate republics, and feeding in like anti-communist propaganda.
That's so crazy.
And like nationalist rhetoric. So what does this sound like to you, other than like this? So
it's wild how I had no idea how elaborate the propaganda machine was even during this time. Like I knew it got ramped up a lot after World War II, after like Eisenhower and stuff like that. But goddamn, like this is crazy. This predates a lot of the stuff that I knew.
Yeah, and I mean another caution that the Yugoslavia Tito toured non-allied African and Asian countries in 1958, proven pleasingly obnoxious to the Russians. Such activities were not a mixed blessing for the West. They feared the governments in those regions might be tempted by the Yugoslav experience to draw the fallacious conclusion it is possible to flirt with communism without much of the risk of compromising themselves with Moscow or Peking.
I was just going to say, speaking of Peking, like at the same, so this was during, at the same time, there was Mao's rule going on in China, right? So Mao was busy getting 800 million people out of poverty at the same time that Yugoslavia was kind of developing their own form of communism.
Right. There's a lot of different, I'm not so sure about the dates on that, but yeah.
It just sounds like there was a lot of very major nations at the same time kind of like looking at communism or looking at, like very, very, very left, like socialism kind of taking off. And the US and Western interests were really trying to suppress that stuff. And it didn't work so well, obviously, with them in China, because China has socialism, I guess, to some degree. But yeah, that's interesting. I'm just trying to get kind of like a global understanding of like what was happening at the same time, which was like freaking out the US. And I could see if like China was doing the same thing at the same time, like they would be like, oh shit, there's actually a bunch of countries trying to do this communism thing.
The British actively encouraged increased contact between Yugoslavia and uncommitted countries. This was despite officially bitterly recorded Tito presenting his nations to Africans as staunch anti-colonialists and not as anti-Stalinists on the 1958. This is him in Africa. They're very much obviously not going to like this. Self-harm is nonetheless worth suffering for British intelligence overall. The defiance to Russian imperialism is a corrosive effect which our ideas and practices have had upon the Marxist doctrine. Let's hear a little bit more about Parenti. Wait, there is a part where I'm trying to get to the Bush part. So I already decided that the protecting Yugoslavia's achievements outside the Soviet bloc was not judged sensible to act as apologist for Tito's government, when the image he would project was much more anti-colonialist than anti-Soviet bloc communists. Conversely, believed a very considerable advantage. There's a lot of the same stuff that Parenti was saying in 1999. This planned operation entailed the small-scale publicity campaigns rather than giving general directives to various organs of publicity that which we control.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy. And again, this was like 1958. It's just wild how this is like right after the Korean War and before Vietnam's. This is interesting period of time. I'm just like so unfamiliar with this period of time and just like trying to put stuff together at the same time.
Well, you know what it is? It's like mostly about like pushing it back against the narrative that this was a collapsed country due to like a ravaged like ethnic war.
No, it sounds like they were getting their shit together.
No, it's really like the opposite of the fact. It's very deliberate and it's very planned, and like check this out. So and again, this is like the main like Marxist like critic of like I'll talk to Stalinists or like I'll talk to like, you know, communists like today on like Twitter or whatever, and like they'll be like, oh, like you're a Todoist, like, you know, oh, so you love IMF loans, you love like, oh, you love
doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't really mean, because like what else are you gonna do from a ravaged? You're a war-torn, ravaged country.
The thing is, like, the Castro fucking took millions from the U.S., didn't he? Wasn't he like? I thought the thing behind Castro kind of liberating Cuba kind of came off the backs of him basically stealing a bunch of money from the West.
Yeah.
So like the idea, like I understand, and also like if people are giving you shit about the IMF stuff, like that's also kind of, it's difficult to, it's like what you were saying, like what are you supposed to do? Like you can get, you know, these enormous loans. Unfortunately, it comes with a freaking price tag that you kind of understand going into it is going to kind of like could really like strangle like your country. But I see where Tito was coming from. Like it sounds like from the beginning he was like, I'm just gonna do what I can with the IMF and kind of fuck them at the end.
Like this is what it is. It is like on the imperialist stage, you're not allowed to have your own independent
exactly
economy anymore. You're tied to either like some other great power. So namely by extolling the virtues of Belgrade's alternative economic system, framing it as wholly autonomous from both Washington and Moscow. Governments adopting the same approach would not be cognizant that at any point in the future, the U.S. empire could choose to pull the rug out from under them in a spectacular fashion, and which happened precisely in the 60s and 70s. Belgrade borrowed heavily from Western countries. 1980, those creditors, including the IMF and World Bank, demanded this be promptly repaid, which imposed crippling and ever-escalating interest on the sum owed, which they're unable to keep up with. Belgrade agrees to restructuring of its own ballooning debt, but under its terms, the IMF and the World Bank imposed this brutal neoliberal austerity program where wages were frozen, state subsidy of essential goods abolished, social spending savagely cut, dozens of worker-owned enterprises bankrupted, hundreds and thousands of worker-owned enterprises employees laid off, and tens of thousands of forced become guest workers in Europe, all to the service of an enormous debt interest.
Wow. So while they're racking up this interest, they're trying to like basically destroy the fabric of their society at the same time.
Yeah, and then so you ask yourself like why does the United States care whether or not another country's working class is like living well or not? You have to ask yourself that question. This is the really like deliberate part here. This culminated in November 1990, which under direct pressure from Bush, the U.S. Congress passed the 1991 Foreign Appropriations Act, which they were cut off from all U.S. aid and credit and trade credits in the global financial system. The constituent republic's ability to declare independence and hold elections under State Department observation.
Oh my God!
Within 6 months, so like they went to each individual republic, like Macedonia, Bosnia,
basically kind of doing like a
Croatia,
kind of a soft coup here.
Yeah, I mean they're all like, so they put in their own people. They take care of all the elections and they take care of all the results.
That's rigging. That's rigging.
And there were right-wing neoliberal factions that were supported by Washington with the Western support resume to those individual republics. So like imagine like, you're getting cut off from everything, and the only way you can go back is if you like kiss up to Daddy United States back, and you know we're gonna hold your elections. We're gonna like just president. This is blackmail. This is like financial blackmail. This is basically
they let them rack up debt for a while, for decades, and then they're like, okay, we're just going to freaking strangle your country now.
The U.S., Britain, and West Germany had openly and secretly throughout the 1980s sponsored and promoted nationalist, separatist elements within Yugoslavia in the service of the country's breakup, compliance which was largely assured across the Federation. The sole exception was Serbia, which consistently rejected the IMF and World Bank austerity measures, despite destructive sanctions and the measures that one could point to producing hyperinflation in the quintillions. Belgrade still refused to capitulate to the global capital's demands. So this is, again, Parenti, in 1999, corroborating the same exact thing, 25 years ago.
Yugoslavia opened this up to Western capital penetration as early as the late 60s, early 70s, I think it was. I think they made the same mistake that the Polish Communist Party leaders made. They said, well, what we're going to do is continual basic industry, building up the industrial base, heavy industry, and we're also going to increase and improve consumer production. Now, how are we ever going to be able to do both of those things, you see? Very simply, we got the answer. We'll borrow from the West. Well, once they started borrowing, with borrowing from the West came IMF penetration and an enormous debt. With debt came IMF demands for restructuring. Restructuring is a euphemism for a harsh austerity program. You cut back in public sector spending. You cut wages. You cut employment. You abolish work management enterprises. In other words, you force people to work harder for less, producing more, consuming less, and with that difference, you pay off your debt schedule, or at least the interest that's accumulating on this wealth. Still, much of the economy was public sector and not-for-profit, including the very rich reserves of minerals and other natural resources in the province of Kosovo and elsewhere. Then came another blow. What I'm saying to you is that there was a conscious and deliberate plan to fragment and break up Yugoslavia.
1999.
The other blow was in November 1990, when President George Bush went to the U.S. Congress and pressured them to pass the foreign appropriations law that called for the cutting off of all aid and credits to Yugoslavia. Trading without credits can be a disaster, especially for a country that doesn't have a hard currency, and this had a devastating effect on the country.
Can someone, so if anyone can explain that concept to me, you know what trade credits are, by any chance?
I'm not terribly familiar with it, but I do have.
So
you can see me kind of taking some notes here. I have some stuff to say on what he's saying.
But this is this is when he describes, when he says the word hard currency. That's the big downfall. That's why you see BRICS coinciding in all these African countries coalescing together and creating their own hard currency, because that's how you defeat them.
Well, it's like what happened last time an African country wanted to create its own currency. What happened there? Libya got freaking bombed to fucking the Stone Age.
Nigeria right now. Apparently France is
France left, but
on their way out.
Totally separate subject. Totally different rabbit hole to get into.
The law also demanded that if any republic in Yugoslavia wanted further U.S. aid, it would have to break away from Yugoslavia and declare its independence. Okay? It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not my speculation. It's not my analysis. It's a public law. It's a public law. November 1990, the 1991 Foreign Appropriations Act. It's written right there. Go look at it. It required the U.S. State Department approval of election procedures and results in every one of the republics. It required that the republics do not hold national elections, but hold elections only in their own republics, and that the aid would go individually to those republics. And when the aid did go, it went to those groups which the U.S. defined as democratic groups, which meant small, right-wing, ultra-nationalist, and even fascistic parties. The ultimate goal was to break up Yugoslavia into a weak and cluster of right-wing banana republics, privatized, deindustrialized. The U.S. decided to destroy, with the other Western powers decided to destroy Yugoslavia in 1989, when it became evident that it was the one country in Eastern Europe that would not voluntarily overthrow what remained of its socialist system. It was the one country that was still trying for some kind of economic independence outside of the world global free market third worldization process. They wanted a Yugoslavia whose rich natural resources would be at the disposal of multinational corporations, whose populations would work at subsistence wages, whose economy offered no competition with existing capitalist producers, only new investment opportunities. They wanted a Yugoslavia whose petroleum, engineering, mining, and automotive industries would be undone and deindustrialized. And they wanted to abolish Yugoslavia's public sector services and social programs. Now, why would U.S. policymakers, you really think U.S. policymakers are motivated by some need to abolish the social programs, the public sector services in Yugoslavia? Why would they want to do that? Do you think they are such nefarious, evil, intended individuals they would want to abolish their social programs? Come on, Parenti. Are you being paranoid? Well, why would they want to abolish our social programs?
Exactly.
Exactly. It's an economic war. It's ideological, and it's like for the most part, like there's a relationship here between like BRICS and Ukraine and Russia because this is the goal with Russia. The goal,
Right.
what they did to Yugoslavia, what NATO did to Yugoslavia, is what they plan. What the wet dream of NATO is to do exactly the same thing in Russia. Go to Belarus, go to all these different republics in Russia, fund all their different
and just fragment the shit out of it so it can't
fragment the shit out of it, become different small states,
little
so that
neoliberal shitholes.
So Washington can control them with money. Let me go to 37 here. This is Parenti. Parenti describes a little bit how the media framed this war, or at least like the bombings in 1999. Great, and this is why I have so much respect for Parenti. This is right after the bombings. Like he's there. He's 100% right. Here we have like Kit Clarenberg pretty much saying the same exact thing 25 years later and corroborating all of this information. Like Parenti has been on the dot, man. Like I don't get it. Like he's just correct. I just don't.
Yeah, he's just like completely right. He's just like without even having all that secret information and all that declassified information. He has the understanding of. Yeah, he has the like materialist understanding of like why these countries are doing what they're doing.
We want peace, but we have encouraged a deepening of the war. Why were the Serbs targeted for demonization? By the way, at first they weren't. The U.S. was sort of backing the Serbs, and they pulled a guy up who they decided would be their man. In the breaking up of Yugoslavia, he was a banker, and he was a Serbian nationalist, and his commitment to communism was very, very fuzzy or vague. And he was the ideal guy, they thought, and they called him a charismatic personality. His name was Milosevic, and he was our guy. But when they discovered that instead of being a tool, he would be an obstacle, then, of course, he became demonized. The Serbs are the largest nationality, and they're the one most opposed to the breakup of the Federation. But what about all the atrocities they've committed? Well, atrocities and executions have been committed on all three sides. You know, it really was fascinating. Someone got to do a media analysis of this. In 95...
I really want to. But listen to this. This is crazy.
When Clinton was thinking of going in to Bosnia, the atrocity stories about the Serbs started piping up. I'll talk about some of them later in a minute. When he decided, as the 96 election started getting closer, when he decided it might be too messy and we shouldn't go in, the atrocity stories slowed down, and then the media started. There was a frame of maybe about a month, a couple of months there, a frame where they started saying, the Serbs are the only ones committing atrocities, and they started quoting Croatian and Muslim atrocities and this sort of thing. It was amazing. Then when he decided after 96 that he was going to go in again, then the Serb atrocity stories came up again. It's sort of like the gas flame on your stove, the way the media will follow policy. And there's no hidden mystery about it. There's no conspiracy about it. They wait till what's fed out to them. If the Pentagon or the U.S. or the White House says, this is terrible, we've got to go do this, they've got to go do this. U.S. are concerned. We've got to go do that. They are the stenographers of power, you see.
I mean, he's right, and I actually have a video on my segment later that goes along with this as well, that the media follows our politics. You know, now maybe that's not true for every country, but that's certainly true in our country.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to get this out of the way first, because I feel like this is like kind of like the dialectic behind all of this, behind like what we're like the show today, basically. Coming against like the pesticide stuff is really scary. What you're going to talk about is really scary, but you know, we also went over the Nazis in Canada. Look this is Balkan Insight. Balkan Insight is a great website if you want to know a lot of the truth. Serb intelligence, the Milosevic Serb
literally
intelligence,
CIA,
literally CIA. You can't make this stuff up. It's not a conspiracy.
That's a coup. That's a coup.
It's straight up a coup. It's a coup.
That's crazy.
Let me get to.
That's wild. think it's just interesting to me how it seems to me from what Parenti was saying that like Tito was doing everything right. He was increasing, you know, his industry, increasing consumer spending, like trying to like raise his economy. And they were like, no, we can't have none of that. You're doing these things too right. You're gonna get it right. We can't have none of that.
Yeah, exactly. Because there was already like an impression on like the Stalinist regime was like too oppressive, and they wrote, like, you know, it had like aspects of it that were like particularly like anti-communist or like, you know, sort of like over the line. And, you know, I mean, Tito, like he straight up, like Tito spent 9 years in a Moscow prison because he got stabbed with a chevalier, like, you know, like how they ride in World War I, you know how they rode on the horses with the big sharp sword.
Mm-hmm.
He got stabbed in the chest. He got taken to Moscow, and he stopped. He sat in a Moscow prison with like literally like a stab wound, reading Marxism and like learning about communism. And then
that's
he went
crazy.
then he went to the University of Lenin. Yeah, no, it's crazy. And then like the Nazis take over in World War II. He literally Croatia, like we had in this, like during World War II, like we didn't have like a president. We had like literally like one of Hitler's like diplomats was like part of like Croatia. Look up the Ustashi. Like that's like basically the Nazi like Croatian party. And there were like, again, there's all of these sides were all purely right wing, pure nationalist, and a lot of this ideology, it didn't spring out of nowhere because, like Parenti said, and how described, people were fine when they were living under a normal, like when they were taken care of. People had intermarriage. So Serbians and Croatians intermarried. The Muslims and the Catholics intermarried. They had children. They lived with each other. There was tons of Serbs in Croatia. There's to this day there's Serbs in Croatia and there's Croatians in Serbia. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's like a deeply criminal, like there's like, I'm not going to say that there's like not like really bad ties, because like obviously there's still like bad blood around. And that like that idea is still there. That's actually a lot of like the right wing, like you know, Slavic like boomers that you'll talk to is like kind of like, you know, the anti-communist ones will be like, right. Yeah, like, you know, fuck Serbia, whatever. It's like, for what? Where you have to understand, like, where did that come from? Why am I so passionate about like my particular, like,
right? Where did that nationalism come from?
Or fed to you or not? And this is the relationship between like the Nazis in Ukraine, the Slavic regions, what they're doing to Russia, and ultimately how NATO operates, because we are the Nazis. We literally implant the Nazis and like we empower them. In World War II, Ford, you can look this up. Ford sued the United States because the Allies,
I remember that,
bombed their Nazi factories in Germany, and they won. Amazing. Incredible. We are the Nazis, guys. Listen to this.
Extract people block by block. They were so intermingled. When things are going okay, when things start going, when you've got sanctions, when you've got the loss of trade credits, when you've got 70% unemployment, when things are beginning to unravel and get desperate, that's when people begin to want to jump ship. And when you've got a U.S. national security state backing the most divisive, militant, fascistic national elements, with fascist organizations arising in Yugoslavia that hadn't been seen in 45 years, armed with guns and money and organization and hired thugs, and operating with a blatant assurance that they had the whole might of the U.S. to their backs. That's when the divisions come, and you got a U.S. government that is actually pushing for civil war. And that economic decline and all that activated it. And what was the outcome? The outcome is that in Croatia, you now have the Republic of Croatia with President Tudjman, a Nazi sympathizer.
People love this guy. There's Croatians I'll argue with on Twitter, like they love Tudjman because like, oh, he freed us from Yugoslavia. He freed us from communism.
Just the anti-communist.
He's a great guy. Tudjman's a literal Nazi. He's a literal fucking Nazi.
Who wrote a book saying the Holocaust wasn't all that bad and most of it never really happened. Tudjman, whose flag is the checkered Ustasi flag, which was the Nazi collaborators in World War II, whose army salutes with a straight-arm Nazi salute. Today, Tudjman, who suppressed the more liberal Croatian groups that wanted conciliatory policies with the Serbs. Tudjman.
That's true. The Croatian flag is
It's literally a
based
Nazi
off of the
Nazi collaborator flag.
No, the Croatian flag as it is today, like the original Croatian flag, like this Croatian flag as it is today, is based off of a Nazi symbol. They had to change the colors because it was so controversial. I was serious.
God.
After the Nazis, after like it was like kind of like not seen as good. I think at some point they changed the colors in order to like stop the association. But like it is literally based off of a Nazi symbol. But it's not just Croatia. It was Serbia. It was Bosnia. Listen,
who presided over the forced evacuation of 600,000 Serbs from Croatia between 91 and 95.
Yeah, that's our that's like they like instead of like killing them, just like completely displaced all of them.
I don't see the media or the White House giving much indignant play to that one. Tushman, who lives in obscene wealth along with his cronies, while the people of Croatia now wallow in economic misery. In Croatia, it's...
Why do you think I'm here in the fucking United States? Because Croatia is a fucking second world country right now. If this country that I'm in right now didn't fucking come in here, I'd be sitting with free healthcare right now. A fucking U.S. Imagine if the U.S. for one time just didn't meddle in other countries and just tried to have any sort of like economic independence, just thrive. This is why you can't have communism.
Well, but I mean, right. That's like what you're saying. That's why countries can't have communism, because like the only way for the U.S. system to really function is through freaking violence and subjugation of opposing nations that don't ally with their freaking neoliberal kind of policy.
And like we just got off the segment with the Canadian Nazis. Like we don't even have to go into like Operation Paperclip. Yes, Heidi, I am Croatian. So you don't have to go into Operation Paperclip to know all this stuff. We literally, like, even Canada took on a lot of the Nazi collaborators. Nuremberg trials, you think every single war criminal got tried? A lot of them were saved, and a lot of them were propped up by us.
I saw a thing yesterday. I don't know the veracity of this, but it was basically saying like after World War II, if you had like some sort of like Nazi tattoo, whether it be like SS or whatever, and you showed it at the border of Canada, they would give you citizenship. That was like a fast track. So because they knew you were anti-communist.
We are the Nazis. That's what I'm trying to say. We are the Nazis. We prop up the Nazis, and fascism is coming to the United States. You're seeing it. You're seeing it normalized in Canada today. It's happening. This is the balkanization. It's the third worldization of the entire world.
5 years in prison if you criticize the president. But I don't hear Clinton talking about the need.
That's not true anymore, but that was true. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then people say like, oh, in communism, you can't criticize the president. It's the same thing in capitalism too.
To bomb Croatia back into democracy. Then there's Bosnia, where the U.S. has supported the Muslim fundamentalist Izetbegovic. Izetbegovic, who was with the Waffen-SA when he was younger in World War II. A Nazi, not a collaborator, not a sympathizer, but an active Nazi. And who today now is the president of Bosnia, and hailed as a democratic leader, who wants to establish a religious Islamic republic in Bosnia.
Jesus Christ. Does that sound similar to Canada? Is that similar to what's happening in Canada? Like I want to like emphasize the media, like the framing of how we normalize and how we prop up like, heroes and villains. How like Putin's like a really bad guy, but this Nazi, like he's good. He fought, he fought for
crazy.
Hitler.
Yeah, they weren't all bad. That's just like crazy. Just crazy.
Who suppressed more liberal Muslim leaders. Bosnia is now under IMF and NATO regency. It's not permitted to mobilize and develop its own internal resources. It's not allowed to extend credit or self-finance through an independent monetary system. Its state-owned assets, including energy, water, telecommunications, media, and transportation, are all being sold off to private corporate investors at garage sale prices. And the Serbian part of Bosnia, which just last year democratically elected a president who was against the free market reforms, was removed forcibly by NATO troops because he was thought to be a hardliner. That's the code word used there. NATO is in violation of its own charter, which says that it can take military action only against aggression that's been committed against one of its members. Yugoslavia has attacked no NATO member.
What gives the rules-based order right there?
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Rules don't apply anymore, or there aren't really any rules to begin with. It's just whatever the U.S. wants to do.
Yeah, no, NATO took direct orders from major U.S. corporations. They got that 78-day long bombing campaign. So here's an interesting story.
You said this speech was from what, 1999? You said that Prenti's giving.
Yeah, hold on. This is at King University of Washington, 1999. On. So in one of the this is the Philadelphia train bombing.
Damn.
Let me see. Here we go. Another Kosovo lie exposed. NATO used a doctored video to justify the bombing of a passenger train. So what they did was, yeah, no, it's insane. So when you think, we just had the 9/11 truther stream. Remember the Pentagon video? So you're gonna tell me our governments don't do this? Like they don't like edit videos and they don't like make things look like. So what they did was like they tried to justify it and basically like saying like this is a purely civilian train, and they were trying to justifying like saying like, oh, like the timing didn't line up.
Yeah. It's a terror attack.
You know, we can't. You know, this. According to Clark, the films made clear the passenger train was approaching too fast for the pilot, who was concentrating on difficult business of guiding the bombs. We were, you know, less than a second to abort the strike. But if you look at the actual, if you actually look at the actual video, according to the video,
it was deliberate.
Yeah, this implies that the train was like the way that they showed this video. It was that would imply that the train was going at 300 kilometers per hour. They had like a assessment of it.
Just like a impossibility.
Sped up the video. No, they literally sped up the video 3 times in order to make it look like the train was going.
They fucked up. Yeah.
This is our government. This is how they literally.
And what year was this?
1999.
Okay, so like it's like I wonder what it's crazy to think like 1999 what kind of software was available. I guess it's like still before 2001. Like it's like relatively rudimentary forms of like doctoring videos in that time. Obviously us in 2023 kind of looking at it, but it's crazy they were still able to get away with it at the time.
Yeah, and all the victims, all the perpetrators, they all of course personally profited. A little help from old friends. Efforts to sell 75% of Kosovo's telecom shares are coming to an end. Old American friends are favorites for the country's privatization. Madeline Albright's Albright Capital Management Inc. has been shortlisted for the privatization of PTK, Kosovo's state-owned postal and telecom company, which lists the M1 British Virgin Islands. The group of companies reaching this stage process of mixed reactions. The authority behind the process praised quality of the companies interested in investing. So it's all about capital. They all knew they all knew this ahead of time. Years of mismanagement, the company is damaged. The fast-growing number of employees of this public company. Yeah, you get the point.
Mm-hmm.
I'll wrap it up with Parenti's last few words here. Who's the video now?
It's crazy. Even at that time, he was just able to like nail it so well.
Yeah, I love Parenti.
Let's see.
But there is surgical strikes. They are targeting these. They've learned in Iraq, they learned it very well, that you can destroy the life support systems of the society. And when you do that, you make war, total war, upon the population. And that is what is happening. She goes on to say, I am deeply convinced that I am speaking in the name of all the citizens of Yugoslavia when I say that we have the capabilities and the political will to find a solution for the Kosovo problem. If we are allowed to seek the solution together with the Albanians, and if we take into consideration the fact that all of us have the right to participate in this solution, all one-sidedness and media manipulation are part of the bringing suffering, destruction, and death. By the way, there's 100,000 Albanians living in Belgrade. In Belgrade themselves. They have their own stores in Albania and all that sort of thing. And they're getting hit too. I want to read one other thing. This was written by Tom Day, an author in propaganda in Yugoslavia. To say that these atrocities are contrivances, for the most part, in propaganda, is not to say that Milosevic and the Serbs are blameless and that they're angels. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that we have to even be.
Which is true. Like
I mean, that's like a fair. That's like a fair thing to say. You know, it's just
to make it clear that and it's the same thing that's happening in Ukraine and Russia. We're making worthy victims and unworthy victims. It happens to be that the people on our side are the Nazis. So
be fans of any one side. Regardless of what you think of those people, certainly you can see that this bombing is a horrible thing. Now, Watson understood that this war was not in the interests of the American people. And he wrote this way: who gets the benefit of the war, the Spanish-American War he's talking about? The bond seekers, the capitalists, the railroads. National bankers will profit by this war. The new bonds give them the basis for new banks, and their power is prolonged. Munition makers will profit by this war. The privileged classes all profit by this war. It takes the attention of the people off economic issues and perpetuates the unjust system they have put upon us. Politicians profit by the war. It buries issues they dare not meet. What do the people get out of this war? The fighting and the taxes. What is the United States doing in this war with Spain in the first place? True, Spain is oppressing Cuba, but so is England oppressing Ireland, Egypt, and India. France is oppressing Siam and Madagascar. Turkey is oppressing Armenia. Should we then take up arms against the oppressors of the world? We would more likely end up by becoming oppressors ourselves. The Spaniards and Cubans were bushwhacking one another and killing from 3 to 5 men at a battle. We have gone down there and killed more people in 3 months than they would have killed in 13 years. If they were starving before, who feeds them now? What are we going to get out of this war as a nation? Endless trouble, complications, expense. Republics cannot go into the conquering business and remain republics. Militarism leads to military domination, military despotism. Imperialism smooths the way for the emperor. And that's what you got. When you have a president who's in violation of the NATO Charter, who's in violation of the UN Charter, who's in violation of the War Powers Act, and who's in violation of the U.S. Constitution, where the founders of the Constitution said that you cannot leave this decision of war to only one man, and if you leave it to the president, you no longer have a president, you no longer have a republic, you have an emperor, you have a king. If he can commit a whole nation to war and killing just by his own personal judgment, that's not a democracy. And they said there's got to be a debate, and there's got to be accountability.
So yeah, if you can, I'll end this here. If you watch that whole speech, read the book. It's really enlightening.
To Kill a Nation.
Yeah, To Kill a Nation. Obviously, a play on like To Kill a Mockingbird.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely freaking nailed it. Did you want to go straight into your bit, or did we want to transition to mine first?
You want to do FEMA camps now?
We can
just
do
have
that.
The camps and the pesticides left. I'll do the pesticides left.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think is more transitional? Do you think the?
Well, I saw the thing.
The pesticide thing is very
because
serious.
you were talking about Parenti and you were talking about kind of like imperialism, and so in a way, you know, the stuff that's going on in Hawaii is a form of imperialism, you know, and like the fact that there is a lot of tension happening in Hawaii right now, and has been since Hawaii was colonized by the U.S. over their own sovereignty. So, you know, in that way, I think it kind of ties in well. So we can go into mine. However, you know, with that being said, I'm starting to see connections with what's happening with Lahaina and kind of like a bigger picture with kind of what we're leading to in terms of, you know, really martial law. So that's kind of what I want to dig into. Is going to be a little bit of a departure from specifically on Lahaina and more about what's being kind of springing out of that situation, it appears. So one of the things that, let's see, we can do you want to do the tiny home thing, the tiny home video? I guess we can start with that.
Yeah, which
it's
one?
just right at the top. It says 2022 Maui builds tiny homes.
Yeah.
So I know we do a similar video kind of at the end, but this is
good.
No.
So, no, suspended. I'll just go to the ones that I messaged you.
That's fine. So yeah, so what I'll do, then I'll just start with this then. Give me 1 second here. So basically, well, Lahaina was happening at the same time. FEMA kind of bolstered itself and ended up establishing a bunch of things called disaster resilient zones. So let's read a little bit about what happened there. Give me just a second. Let's see if I can pull this up. Okay. Let me zoom in here just a second. Oh. All right, guys. So what's going on here is that beyond just Lahaina, kind of like at the same time, FEMA was bolstering itself, and this is going to tie into the climate change stuff. And so I kind of want to talk about this because this has really kind of chilling consequences when we put the whole picture together. So on September 6th, I know it's a couple weeks ago, but I still haven't heard anybody reporting on this stuff. FEMA designates first communities to receive targeted assistance for hazard resilience. Okay, so Washington. Today, FEMA announced the initial designations of 483 census tracts that will be eligible for increased federal support to become more resilient to natural hazards and extreme weather worsened by the climate crisis. Congress has directed FEMA to make these designations in the Community Disaster Resilience Zones Act of 2022 and implement this bipartisan legislation to help build resilience to natural hazards in communities most at risk due to climate change. FEMA will use Community Disaster Resilience Zone designations to direct and manage financial and technical assistance for resilience projects. For example, for federal agencies, the legislation provides additional federal cost share for projects in designated zones. So this is important place to kind of just take in that there's a public-private partnership that happens in these designated zones, and that these designated zones will get prioritized funding. Okay. So as I kind of read through this and show you guys what's going on here, you're going to see that there is obviously a capital motivation, capital incentive to kind of ravage these areas, actually. Now, whether you think
the best, like there's no as soon as the interests converge, there is no conspiracy. You don't need the.
I mean, that's the thing, and I'll let you guys kind of decide for your own on as far as weather modification and direct energy and stuff like that, which we'll get into a little bit here. But the point to drive home here is that FEMA has made a law that essentially makes it so that capital has financial interests over wreaking havoc on these areas. Okay, so now if you're kind of not really paying attention to kind of the climate stuff and not really scrutinizing it, you could look at this and be like, oh, well, that's great. Actually, don't we want the government to prioritize these regions that need the most help due to the climate crisis? But as we know, as I said, we'll get into with direct energy and weather modification, that the U.S. government does actually have the ability to wreak havoc on these places without the appearance of doing outright war or like bombing campaigns and stuff like that. They can just do like weather modification and direct energy to ravage these areas instead and kind of perpetuate that kind of crisis on its own. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. I'm not of the opinion that FEMA is doing this to actually help communities, but actually to give capital interests kind of first dibs on these areas. So with that being said, what they say, the act aims to increase resilience efforts and preventative measures designated to address underserved communities most at risk to natural hazards. Consistent with legislative direction, FEMA considered natural hazard risk from a national and state level while accounting for factors that reflect disaster impacts felt by coastal, inland, urban, suburban, and rural communities. FEMA also ensured that each state has at least one community disaster resilience zone in these initial designations. Quote, these designations will help ensure that the most at-risk communities are able to build resilience against natural hazards and extreme weather events, which are becoming increasingly intense and frequent due to climate change, quote, end quote, said FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell. We'll be seeing her name a lot, I think, in the next few years as well, assuming she doesn't get, or whoever Trump puts in, doesn't matter. It's the same kind of agenda. Quote, this aligns with Congress's direction and other FEMA initiatives to give federal support and resources to the communities that need them the most, end quote. This initial set of designations covers all 50 states and DC. These designations can be explored on a map I'm going to show you guys in a little bit here. Additional information, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so you guys kind of get the picture here that there's a that they designated all these zones across the country as disaster resilience zones, and that they have priority funding. And so let's kind of look into a little bit. Let me look at my notes here and kind of go into this. Or did you pull up that video? Yeah, let's go back. We'll just play that video for a second to kind of give people.
This happened. So I mean, the reason why this became a segment was because this video resurfaced. So if you remember,
that's a good point.
If you go back to the Maui prefab homes, I mean, we actually did a segment on it. You also find a video on that, where Maui is building prefab homes. If you can find that article, let me know. But
okay.
It's like prefab built homes
and let's keep in mind while this is, and I have a link to more.
This is just last year. Anyway. This is 2022. Here are the tiny homes again. What is this?
In collaboration with Lieutenant Governor Josh Green.
150 square feet. That's not a home. That's a box.
And the help from community members to build several communities of tiny homes across the island to combat the state's homeless population.
I'll remind people that people suffer on the street, and also they really end up having a big impact on society if they have to go to the hospital all the time or be in the ER. Instead, they're here, they're healthy, they restore their relationships. We save millions of dollars by housing people.
U.S. Vets Hawaii operates 2 shelters on Oahu, and they provide shelter to families and veterans.
2 things cause homelessness, and 2 things only: poverty and lack of affordable housing. If we have people that care, and we can get income, and we can get resources, we can end homelessness. It's just a matter of stop trying to manage it and actually try to end it. There are far more people living
that's probably enough for that segment right now
in their homes.
But the thing to keep in mind is a couple of things here. So first off, FEMA is kind of a de facto military arm. So what's kind of going on here is they're establishing these emergency kind of initiatives. So they're putting people under kind of this de facto martial law. Okay, they're making it so they have to rely on the government for their support. Okay, and they're creating they're not addressing the issue. What they're doing is they're appealing to private capital to build these freaking prefab bullshit and all the kind of infrastructure that goes around with these kind of alienated and disparate communities. Okay, so that's kind of what I want to keep in mind with that.
There's another one here.
37 tiny homes that will be leased to homeless veterans. It also has a community center with shared facilities, amenities, a medical clinic, and support services.
What is it?
There are so many people that are struggling out there. And to go to this development team who have hearts and say, we can absolutely help families and give them housing. How do we do it? Where do we do it? Let's get it done.
The location is set to open.
It's like
later
here's like the
December
issue
1st.
I have. Like before I start getting just on a brief sidetrack, because let's just keep in mind that, you know, kind of going back to where we're trying to have kind of like a dialectical kind of conversation and kind of like look at this from all this stuff and kind of like a broad way of how everything's being impacted, and I kind of lost my train of thought. Is that for every homeless person in America, there's something like 17 or 18 vacant homes. Okay. So the problem is not supply. Okay. And when we realize that the problem is not supply, then immediately we know that what they're doing is they're just grifting, you know, because if the issue was supply, okay, give them homes, you know, and what they're doing is, instead of just, you know, expropriating or maybe taking away the profit motive from make housing a right, they're doing this to appeal to NGOs essentially. So, and what I want to do, so that's probably good on the video, unless there was more that you wanted to share. But I wanted to kind of show this other company just as an example, because this shit's freaking, I think it's depraved, but people get a kick out of this, but people seem to think that this is kind of like in a good thing, because it's like, oh well, you know, first off, it's kind of ironic that these guys all have military gear on this like homepage. But you can see like all these prefab homes, like, again, this isn't addressing the issue. This is appealing to capital interests. So build a village. Okay. So we're just going to look at a couple of this stuff. Featured project. Yeah. Just let's see. I want to see a palette for disaster. But you can see, okay. So they want to put people into basically these prison cells. Okay. That's not a home to me. That's a box. And this is just one example of these NGOs kind of do this stuff. They're not really addressing the issue while appearing to address the issue. What they're doing is they're just, you know, selling out. They're just grifting off of this stuff. So let's look at one other thing here. I just want to see. You can kind of see how ridiculous some of this stuff is. Let me zoom this in a little bit. Okay. Oh, I'll get to that, Team Orca. Good point. But you can see, so this is kind of what's happening. And let's keep in mind that it's not individuals who are going to be buying these products. It's the state. It's the government that's going to be purchasing these things. So the price doesn't matter. Although I think at some point, the state is going to try and charge people to live in these homes. You know, they'll give them disaster relief initially, and then they're going to be like, okay, it's time to collect. But that's more of just kind of my opinion, so I don't want to get too much into that. But you can see, like, they're creating they're trying to make all the, like, basically entire prefab communities. And, like, I don't particularly find any of this to be virtuous, really. You know, it looks sterile, like, just from like a human aspect, you know, just unappealing. This doesn't look like, I wouldn't want a community like this where it looks like I'm living in a goddamn prison camp. You know, that looks like a fucking prison cell. I'm sorry. Like,
I mean, we're over this plenty of times. I showed the Futurama video on like plenty of other segments where it's like literally living in a closet.
Yeah, like, this is crazy. Like, come on. Like, this
so
is
I'm,
supposed
so
to
I'm
be.
Curious I'm curious about this. This is something that
I'm good on. I guess I can stop sharing that. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys, because I think it's a prison camp, and we'll dig in a little bit more into that. But that's kind of where I'm going with this. And actually, there's Alex Jones called that about 15 years ago. So I'll just put that there.
Yeah. Look up police state 4 FEMA camps. Alex Jones predicted this.
Civilian inmate. What was it called? The civilian inmate prison.
Does Alex Jones have to predict in order for them to become true? I mean, like, look at this.
Oh, cool. So this is the
Tim Truth. Well, it's not playing the audio. I mean, hold on, it
was doing that for me earlier too.
It's weird. Like, it's weird with like ad block.
Or what you can do, if you want, well, I guess you can play that. But what I was gonna say, the kind of, is this the whole Tim Truth? Yeah, okay. So guys, I guess I'll just get right into it. I was gonna kind of say this for the, Yeah, I
Okay,
kind of want
yeah,
to save
yeah,
it for a little bit.
yeah.
If you look
Let
at
me
it.
let me
So
let me see if I can load this anyway. So go ahead.
pull up the CNN. Yeah, I think the thing I sent you in the private chat.
Okay.
So what I kind of want to pivot to before I start getting more into FEMA and the overall picture is I just want to drive home again that, you know, I'm of the belief, and Greg, I don't know how necessarily far you go with like climate change and where you think the line is, but I just want you guys to see that Project Veritas, and this was done like what 6-8 months ago. It's quite a long time ago that they did this, and this is the CNN tech
like
director.
climate change is like a narrative used to control.
Yeah, it's a narrative.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show this.
Climate change is real. Like they're definitely using it for a propaganda tool, and it's important.
Propaganda, and then also there's a financial element. You know, there's a profit motive.
It's a fourth industrial.
It's the new. It's also a new villain. You know, so climate change, because it's kind of like this like abstract thing. They can get they need to keep us in kind of like a perpetual state of like fear and uncertainty. And so it's like, oh, well, if like Trump's not in office, they're going to freaking find something else to ramp up. Oh, like no more pandemic. What can we do? So let's listen to the CNN tech director, okay, talk about how they're going to just freaking freak Americans out with nonstop coverage on climate change.
A new story comes out, they're going to latch onto it. They've already announced in our office that once the public will be open to it, we're going to start focusing mainly on climate, like global warming, and like that's going to be our next like I don't know, like what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be our focus. Like our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was, right? So our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
What does that look like?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I have a feeling it's just going to be like constantly showing videos of like decline in ice and weather warming up and like the effects it's having on the economy, and really
Who
talking
decides
about
that?
the head of the network, like just
Who's that? Is that Zucker?
Zucker. Yeah, I imagine that he's got his council and they've all like discussed like where they think.
And look, this is Project Veritas, guys.
So that's like
this
the
is
next
6 months ago. This is before O'Keefe
pandemic like story like that will beat to death. But that one's got longevity. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a definitive ending to the pandemic, or you know, like it'll taper off to a point that it's not a problem anymore. I think it's going to take years, so they'll probably be able to miss that.
And that's the other thing to tie into is that like he's admitting climate thing is going to take years, if not decades. And if they can milk freaking out Americans and freaking out, you know, the world over climate change, they're going to milk it out as long as possible, because if they can keep us in a state of fear, we're more likely to just do whatever the government tells us to do. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. Now so let's see. Is there any more play? I think you get kind of a picture here. But I just wanted to play this kind of clip really quick and just show you guys that, you know, CNN saying the quiet part out loud. That, I mean, obviously he was kind of caught with his pants down. But it's very obvious to me that climate change is a narrative that's being driven to us, and that it's kind of being foisted upon us instead of something that has happened organically. And I think that's worth considering. Now, I just kind of wanted to show you before I kind of start getting, you know, a little bit kind of schizo a little bit. I want to just kind of edify some of the stuff. I just wanted to edify some of the stuff that I was like, I'm kind of getting to. So
you know what it is? I feel like this is beyond conspiracy. This is beyond like any sort of like, this is concerning. This is questions that people should be asking. That's simply what it is.
So
and it's important to point it out, to have these questions and
have the
think
conversation
critically about what's happening here, what is actually happening here. Because if we look at the track record of our current government, it's terroristic, it's literally Nazis, and we're like a pure like imperialist power who seems to be on the side of evil almost every time.
All the time, yeah. So before I kind of shift shift gears a little bit, I just wanted to show you guys. So kind of what I'm building up to is kind of I'm making the case where, if you guys can already kind of tell, that this kind of climate disaster stuff that we're being thrusted upon us is going to be deliberately initiated by the U.S. and private capital. So before we get too crazy, I just wanted to show you guys a couple quotes and some videos of leaders that said that we already have had this technology for quite a while. So now on the topic of weather modification and direct energy, for example, U.S. Secretary of Defense William S. Cohen said in April 28th in 1997 at the Conference on Terrorism, Weapons of Mass Destruction and U.S. Strategy, University of Georgia, while discussing the dangers of false threats, quote, "Others are engaging even in an eco-type of terrorism whereby they can alter climate, set off earthquakes, volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves." Okay, that's HARP. Topic for another day perhaps, but that's weather modification. Now, I know a few weeks ago we were talking about directed energy, and I don't know if directed energy and like weather modification are the same thing. But you can see that, was it 25 years ago? We had the Secretary of Defense saying the quiet part out loud that we had weather modification technology. Of course, he's saying others are engaging in it. But that's actually a good thing. So to kind of pivot to. So let's look at the video of the what's her name? The Romanian senator. Here, I'll put it in the private chat. So I don't know if you guys remember at the beginning of the year, there was an earthquake in Turkey. And the people who were kind of on that shit were pretty quick to suggest that it was a terrorist attack or it was a weather modification attack. So what I want to do, and Greg's going to pull this video up, is that here's a video of a Romanian senator saying that the earthquakes were triggered by U.S. weather modification device, otherwise known as HARP.
This is full schizo mode, but this is crazy. This is crazy.
So just be careful, like right after like 9 or 10 seconds, unless you just want to go to like 23 seconds in, because she does say something that would possibly get us
talk about the vax.
Yeah, she talks a little bit about some pandemic stuff.
The vax stuff.
So let's just go. So basically, she's making a declaration that we've been fed a bunch of bullshit. Okay, and so let's go to about 23 seconds. 23 seconds, but yeah, you can see.
Oh my god, that's not okay. That's not a good word.
But it's important to see. So let's listen to what she has to say.
globului, dar repun pe alte făgașuri politica internațională.
Oh, it's in a different language. We're good.
Yeah. Through wars that reduce the world's population but rearranges international politics, realigns power, we have lived to witness the production of earthquakes on command, which is actually an attack on Turkey by the greatest of the world, who totally dislike being set up by Erdogan, the president of Turkey. Moreover, his position of neutrality and mediator of the Ukrainian-Russian war deeply disturbed them, especially since Turkey is the second great power from a military point of view within NATO. His position to block Sweden's accession to NATO, his speech in Davos, as well as the gesture of leaving in the middle of a press conference defying Schwab, did not remain without an echo in the cold war of leaders. But no one thought that people would have to die, so many people, in such a terrible way. And it's just a warning because it wasn't the most populated area of Turkey. 150 aftershocks of a devastating earthquake, the second larger than the first, without the existence of an epicenter. The area being artificially stimulated, geological weapons having existed for a very long time, being used so far without causing too many casualties, probably for experiments. Now it has been put into practice. If we look carefully at the map of Turkey, you'll see that it's burrowed by gas and oil pipelines, this being actually one of the goals.
Acestea fiind de fapt și unul dintre scopuri, distrugerea lor. Însă cu 10 secunde înainte de producerea așa zisului seism, Turcia a închis aceste conducte. În plus, cu 24 de ore înainte de producerea seismului, 10 state și-au retras ambasadorii din Turcia. Cu 5 zile înainte de producerea acestuia, Maie din România emitea o avertizare de călătorie pentru cetățenii români în Turcia, deși nu exista un pericol la fel alte țări. Omorând oameni și-au făcut interesele. Hărțile prezentate pe toate canalele de televiziune arată că nu a existat un epicentru, ci o epilinie cu mii de cutremure. Serviciile secrete turcești investigează o posibilă intervenție criminală, a se citi o implicare a altui stat în declanșarea primului seism, ce a urmat ulterior fiind o reacție în lanț după destabilizarea plăcilor tectonice din regiune. Este foarte clar că președintele Erdogan a fost pedepsit pentru curajul, demnitatea și onoarea sa și pentru apropierea sa de Federația Rusă, în fapt o poziție de neutralitate și mediere pentru pace. În plus, se dorește îndepărtarea atenției oamenilor de pe Ucraina, unde deja reprezentanții multor țări au început să vocifereze împotriva despotismului și ordinelor date de președintele Zelenski, de parcă ar conduce lumea și cineva ar avea obligația să trimită arme și să participe la războiul său.
And I'm not going down that whole rabbit hole today because I think she does a good job kind of summarizing the Turkey earthquake. There's other examples, but I just wanted to kind of show the most recent one. I am of the opinion, like I am of the belief that obviously that we can do this shit, and we have done this shit. So, you know, now that I've had some edification there, what I'm going to do is let's look at the map and let's take a look at some of these disaster resilience zones and kind of where I think they're going at with this stuff. So I'm going to share this. All right, give me just a second here. Is it going to be all weird? It's going to be all weird for me. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, awesome. So, okay, we can kind of see that. I see it coming through on Restream.
I see it. You got it?
Yeah, I got it on my screen. I just want to zoom in a little bit more. There we go. Okay, guys. So remember how I was talking about the 483 census tracts? So you see all these little like gray areas all over the map. We'll go to Colorado for the sake of being my state for now. But you can see these little gray tracts. Okay, these are the disaster resilience zones. Okay, so that's where my belief is where the U.S. is going to start, you know, doing weather modification and wreaking havoc on these areas, okay? And then private capital is going to jump in and they're going to get on the grift. They're going to like start setting up these tiny homes and they're going to divert people and try and relocate them into these areas so that they're now under martial law. And then they're going to force them eventually to turn them into eventually work camps. Now, I did see some articles and stuff like that about how, you know, they are actually converting POW camps and internment camps into these FEMA camps. But, you know, I wasn't like 100% enough on the sources, so I didn't really want to go too far on that stuff. But here's Hawaii, for example, obviously because it's topical with the stuff that's happening in Lahaina. But it's weird. You would think that Lahaina would have gotten designated a zone. It did not. Okay. But to kind of, I know I saw like Orca said something earlier where they're going to try and relocate Lahaina residents. Well, look what's going on the Big Island. So my belief is that they're going to start setting up, you know, the FEMA camps over on the Big Island. They're going to tell the people in Lahaina who are homeless now and have nowhere to go. They're going to be like, hey, you have a home on the Big Island. You have a tiny home on the Big Island. And that's where I'm seeing this go.
Yeah, and
so
the weather modification is like not even like purely like conspiracy theory. Like it exists. Like look up cloud seeding. Like it's not like
like chemtrails, stuff like that. Like there's different levels to it, but I would agree with you on that. I'm trying the best I can to not sound totally schizo and come at this from a kind of objective thing, kind of trying to back it up a little bit, because I know you kind of have to stretch your imagination a little bit to kind of believe these things. So I would understand if people thought I was being overly cynical with this stuff. But if you understand that the U.S. is capable of committing like basically climate crime, climate terrorism, eco-terrorism, and doing it deliberately and doing it like in specific regions, which I think if you look at this map, you can see that the U.S. is basically telling on themselves, and in my opinion, telling us where these attacks are going to take place. Not natural disasters, attacks. And they're going to try and forcibly relocate people into these camps, okay, which are now under martial law because FEMA is part of FEMA is under martial law. And so you have this thing where you have private capital trying to grift off of the climate change. You saw the media like CNN, for example, talking about they're going to grift all day off of the climate change. So they're going to perpetuate it as well. And then the U.S. government, because we live in a fascist country, is going to appeal to capital interests by attacking these regions. So yeah, that's where I'm going at with this. And before we get into a last part, that Tim Truth video, kind of the bigger picture. Now this is kind of me kind of speculating a little bit, but what I am seeing happening here, okay, is that we'll take Lahaina, for example, okay? They're going to try and move them to the Big Island, okay? Now, they have a pretty robust mutual aid thing, and I'm waiting for, like, Costa's new video to come out because I'm really curious about that. And, they have a pretty resilient community as far as Hawaii in particular has a lot of bad blood with the U.S. government as far as, like, colonization and sovereignty. So I think it's going to be really interesting when these camps start getting built on the Big Island and they try and relocate Lahainians onto the Big Island, whether that's going to start like a conflict, or people are just going to move, or the U.S. is going to come in and martial law and they're going to be like, no more mutual aid, no more anything. You're either going to volunteer or voluntold. And they're going to forcibly move people into these camps. Now, under FEMA, it's my understanding that initially they would provide some sort of no cost, like relief at no cost to people who are impacted by these natural disasters. But I don't think that that's going to be the end goal. I think eventually they're going to turn these things into kind of labor camps. Again, I'm kind of speculating. My belief is that eventually they're going to want to turn these disaster resilient zones into profit centers. And whether
do you have anything from the Deborah Tavares stuff?
Like all that stuff I was sending you. Oh
yeah.
My god. There was a couple good ones. I'd have to go through my screenshot stuff.
Maybe we can expand on this a little bit later, but like.
Yeah, I might pull something up again later then. But yeah, you guys can see where I'm full skits on this. I think within the next few months, they're going to have these little tiny homes built up. They're going to freaking try and force people to move there. And we're either going to see a huge conflict erupt in fucking Maui, or we're going to see people kind of getting relocated en masse into these FEMA camps. So do you want to go back to that Tim Truth video?
Yeah, let's play it.
So that's probably a good point to get to the last video that I have for this segment, and then again I'll try and pull up some other stuff on the Deb Tavares kind of report on Iron Mountain stuff.
And it's not necessarily schizo mode. It's not necessarily schizo.
Now again, where I'm coming from with this is they're going to make work compulsory, and you're going to see through this video why I am of that belief. So I guess you could probably start the video.
Didn't do the best job of covering up the open pipes leading into each of the cabins. Complete with an air pressure PSI indicator, there's a manual turn lever and an open pipe that would allow nefarious officials to easily pump noxious or incapacitating gas on a cabin-by-cabin basis, allowing precision attacks against their desired targets. And I can't shake this sinking feeling in my gut that maybe these are extermination camps. This may be a way to clandestinely kill certain, quote, undesirables and or sterilize them. Remember what we just went through. The Australia government was forcibly putting people into concentration camps, quarantine camps. We have a hot mic recording of a guard telling somebody that they'd get fucking gassed if they didn't calm down.
So it sounds like they want this guy to stay here longer, which is concerning for me because he's stayed here for 14 days.
Hey, you gotta take me somewhere fucking else!
Australia went way crazy with that.
Yeah, they freaking.
And how could we ever forget the whistleblower from within the manufacturing process? A tradie who was involved in building these quarantine cabins in Australia, telling us that there were these strange gas pipes that would allow the government to gas people in the cabins. And he said that there was an anomalous pipe leading into each room, which would allow camp staff to administer any type of gas they wanted straight into people's rooms. He even asks, what are they going to gas us in these?
Just want to quickly show you guys something, right? Alright, I'm going to show you these things, ready? These are the quarantine buildings. And these are each rooms. Now see these wires, this is a window. Why do you think they got the wire in the window? It hooks up because they've got a massive roller shutter that keeps you in. This electronic door, which will make it lock, turn the air conditioner off or on. There's that much gadgets, these buildings, what was it, 900,000?
These little tiny homes
cost
cost almost $1 million each.
These little prisons, size of little remand buildings. But this is the thing. For all these buildings is connected a gas pipe that is connected to nothing.
Yeah, just for the heat. See, relax. It's both cold.
Right here. The rest of the building, your air conditioning, your hot water, electrical and that. What's this one over here? Connects through the wall. It's through. It's going to come through the ventilator.
Right through the AC.
Right. What are they going to gas us in these? Show you one that's starting to get sheeted.
We're the Nazis, man. We're the Nazis.
And the only weak point.
We are Nazis. Don't get touched.
Is underneath this window.
So he's like basically describing how people have to freaking break out if they're starving to death or they're freaking like suffocating.
Now, what's extremely concerning is the governor of Hawaii has announced the Kahale Initiative, which we're seeing rolled out around the world under a different name. In other parts of the world, such as San Diego, California, they're calling it Tiny Homes for the Homeless. Now look at what we can see if we zoom into some footage local media aired about these camps. Do you see what's on the wall? That is an open pipe that leads straight into each cabin, meaning the government can administer whatever they want to any of these people. They could sterilize people through the air, through the water, through the food, through the so-called medicine.
Either way.
They could even incapacitate people, help themselves to their room since they have the key, and take their organs.
The project was created in collaboration with Lieutenant Governor Josh Green.
Yeah, we already played this, but
yep. So you guys can see in the beginning, like I was saying, like they want us to be under government control. They want us to be completely like dependent on government resources. And you know why I think that point kind of illustrates itself on why I think eventually work is going to be compulsory, whether they just sterilize, whether they sterilize these people or kill them. You know, the end goal is the same, depopulation, Malthusians, whatever. And here's Deb Tavares kind of doing a little clip here, kind of where I kind of jumped off on some of this stuff. That Tim Truth kind of gave me a little bit of inspiration for this segment, and then I saw the stuff on the Deb Tavares, and that's why I'm totally cynical on this shit.
Yeah.
Talks about a combination of irresistible attacks upon humanity and how they will control humanity. Politically, they talk about how they set up the political system right and left so that we would feel our grievances were aired and our frustrations could come out. But the bankers were behind everyone who was elected, and they laugh at us. They laugh at us.
And by the way, like I recommend books such as like Carol Quigley, like The Anglo-American Empire. You can learn a lot about elite societies and what the actual intention is between like how civilization is set up in a way to maintain capital and power. And Carol Quigley is like an insider, so like you could read like a first-hand account of like what they actually think, but just like add stuff like that to like this kind of stuff.
Very last.
I do want to talk to Charlie Robinson one day. Actually, I heard he's available.
Charlie Robinson.
Yeah. He wrote
might have to see a visual on that.
And I'll go to this right now because we'll come back to the document itself. But the very last statement in this document, it says, Factor 6, cattle. Those who will not use their brains are no better off than those who have no brains. And so this mindless school of jellyfish, father, mother, son, and daughter, become useful beasts of burden, or trainers of the same. So what they say in this document is they will dole out poisonous foods. It's not what we need, but it's what we want, and those that decide to eat these foods will have the consequences of that. They tell us how they set up all the social engineering, how they devise the family, how they crumble the family, how they set up the war machine, how they influence thinking in the family unit to allow the family to give up their children to war for a rich man's fodder. Well, I think we need a revelation, not a revolution. A revolution would only bring in martial law, in the opinion of what we are looking at, would bring in martial law. It would also allow people to be targeted with the weaponry that they cannot wait to roll out on us. All the documents,
Yep.
the Iron Mountain document, even the NASA war document, talks about there are too many people using too much stuff, and the Earth cannot support this. And they've come up with the fear-based scientific fraudulent information that people are now accepting. They're rewriting history and they're rewriting science.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I think she's just a good source of information, Deb Tavares. I kind of came across her relatively recently, but one of the books she mentions is Report from Iron Mountain, which I just recently finished, or I'm about to finish reading, I guess I should say. And they literally had 15 different academic scholars, like people from across the globe, meet up and kind of go through the discussion of war as a necessity in society and the feasibility for peace. And they basically wrote an entire, about 150 pages and came to the conclusion that the U.S., in order to perpetuate itself, has to always be in a state of war. And so part of that, I think, is not necessarily making it where war is us shooting other people or other people shooting us, but that war can also be kind of this thing where it's like, well, if we don't actually have an actual human enemy, then the Western interests need to create an enemy. And that's where I kind of think that climate change is coming through on that. So climate change is going to be that enemy, and they're going to milk it until either people start waking up or we succumb and they don't need to anymore. But that's kind of my take on it. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good way to summarize it right there. I think that's pretty much all my notes that I had on that segment. But yeah, I'm of the belief that they're going to freaking force us in these camps. Like, I know the 15-minute city thing is like another thing that's going on. I think that kind of ties in a little bit to what Greg's got going on. But I think they're going to start forcibly relocating people out of their homes after these natural disasters and kind of put them under martial law. And then, as I said, they're going to force us to work, or they're going to, gas us and sterilize us and kill us. So I guess with that, we can kind of go into, you want to go into your segment?
Yeah. So this is on high alert, especially for those in.
This guy is like, I'm sorry, this stuff's just fucking nuts.
What I'm about to talk about.
Both of us. It's just like from one freaking sketchy thing right into another.
Again, we're going schizo mode today, so like this just happens to be, what our government is doing. I think I think it's clear. I think we're trying to illustrate this point that our government is run by terrorists that are willing to do like pretty much anything. Listen, like how dystopian this is, and like this caught wind last week, and I want to draw people's attentions to it. So listen to this.
Does anybody live in New York City, and did you just have your house sprayed with pesticides? I was in my living room. When these trucks come by, they're making these dystopian announcements. Run inside, get inside.
The city is applying pesticide to reduce the threat of the West Nile virus.
What the?
Exposure to the pesticide, please. Go indoors immediately until the trucks have passed. The city is applying pesticide to reduce the threat of the West Nile
Fucking
virus.
RoboCop.
This is the creepiest.
Or Judge Dredd. I guess Judge Dredd is kind of what it is.
Look at this. What the f***? It's going right into my window.
Escape from New York. Like, so many dystopian movies just like flood my skull right now.
Well,
me?
Fucking crazy. Fucking crazy. So they're just gassing us. No big deal, but it's pesticides, right? They're supposed to be good for us, right?
The city is applying pesticides to reduce the threat of the West Nile virus. To minimize exposure to the pesticide, please go indoors immediately until the trucks have passed. The city is applying pesticides to reduce the threat of the West Nile virus.
Oh my
God. Minimize exposure to the pesticide, please go indoors immediately.
At least he's getting that cough at the same time. Dude, that's messed up. That just looks. What a joke. That doesn't look healthy. It's crazy to me. If you have to, you're good. If you have to send a freaking cop in front of a truck spraying dangerous chemicals into the sky to tell you it's not dangerous chemicals, that like they're already fucking with your head, you know?
So this is what they're doing. I want to make this clear for those living in New York. This is not good, especially for your pets.
And it's not only happening in New York.
It's not just New York either. What they're using is, and these are the main, that are like, the larvicide is like effectively, it's like not as bad, but the adulticide is really, especially this Anvil 10+10, it's extremely strong, is toxic, affects your endocrinitic system, which ironically the COVID vaccine does the same thing. It messes with your hormones, and it kills small animals and kills pets. And you might have seen T-Lab cover a lot of this. I mean, I've actually been sharing sources with him about this because this is really concerning. There's actually a whole movement behind this that I'll show in a little bit. But look at how many events that they've done already. So this is and you have to ask yourself. So they're starting this
Holy shit.
So they started in June, like.
Yeah,
I saw someone ask like, oh, like why are they doing this in the middle of September? They've been doing this all summer. Look at this.
Yeah.
Let me count. Okay. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 locations. 21. Where did they just go today?
Yeah, that's creepy. Bronx.
They rescheduled the spraying in the Bronx today. But listen, guys, if you are in the Bronx, I'll show this.
Get the fuck out of there.
No, really, like hide your pets.
I know.
Stay inside. And isn't it strange how the one thing that can sort of like prevent, like, let's get into what this Anvil 10+10 is.
Yeah, I want to know more about that.
Anvil is a pesticide product that uses to control outdoor residential areas. Short-term exposure to very high levels of pyrethroid pesticides similar to samethrin can affect the nervous system, causing effects such as loss of coordination, tremors, tingling, and numbness in areas of the skin and contact. Short-term exposure to high levels of petroleum solvents can cause irritation of the eyes, skin, nose, throat, or lung. Vomiting or the central nervous system depression may occur if very high levels of petroleum solvents are ingested. There are no studies of examining whether the use of Anvil control mosquitoes has caused any long-term effects in humans.
No studies.
I'm going to show a little bit that
yeah, can't show it's unhealthy if you've never done any studies to prove that.
They tell you if you're pregnant, stay away.
That's nuts. Yeah. So, do you think that they're? So who are they? Do you think that they're just targeting everybody, or do you think that they're targeting specific people? Do you think that, I think it's obvious that they're trying to hurt us, but
so the insecticide that they're using, Anvil 10+10. This is the stronger version. So Anvil 10+10 is often the product of choice for aerial applications. That's when they go in the sky.
Yeah,
they're spraying this shit off the trucks. So whereas Anvil 2+2, which is the weaker version, is typically that's one applied that's applied by truck. New York is spraying the fucking strongest pesticide that they can use. And they're not even doing it properly. They're not doing it via aerial. They're using an ATV and spraying this shit all over your house and your pets and stuff. Hide your pets. Stay inside. Like I said, check out this schedule because they have a whole. They're coming. They're coming to your neighborhood and they're gonna spray fucking pesticides all over your property. They're gonna claim. You may be sensitive.
If you're sensitive, everybody's sensitive to it.
Who's sensitive to pesticides? Really?
Yeah. You should be fine, man. No big deal. Stop being a pussy.
There's a lot of there's just a lot of overlap with the COVID narrative here.
I would see. Okay. So do you think that they're just trying to make people sick?
Look, it lowers your immune system for sure.
Yeah.
So this is Massachusetts. It's not just New York, guys. This is Central Massachusetts Mosquito Control Project. Contains synthetic pyrethroids, which emulate naturally occurring insecticides.
That's crazy. Let me show my screen really quick because I just think it kind of gives a little bit more credence to what we were talking about. So I was just pulling up Bronx because I was kind of curious what the situation was. So that big island right here, that's fucking Rikers. Why would they make Rikers a designated zone if not to be a freaking prison camp?
Oh, Bronx is a really poor area. They're probably going to the poorest country.
But Rikers Island is like a fucking it's just a prison, right? Why would they designate the prison as a disaster resilience zone if not to just make everybody into freaking prison labor in that area or to relocate people onto that? Anyway, I was just noticing that, but you can see there's a bunch of areas in New York actually, but I don't want to take away from your comment from your stuff.
No, don't worry about it, man. Anything you described, look. I mean, the no spray protests have called for the organic methods of preventing West Nile virus due to the concerns of the potential health and environmental effects of the spray. The active compound is an endocrine disruptor. The same thing as the vax. Peter McCullough talks about this. I'm not going to say too much.
Nope.
But it's toxic to bees.
I mean, we've talked about endocrine disruptors in general as well as just being extremely harmful and the kind of forever chemicals and PFAS and all that stuff and just wreaking havoc on us 24/7. It's
They've
just
been doing it for a while. Look, Governor Mitt Romney, Massachusetts, declares state of emergency off of a similarly some rare virus. They have to come up with a new threat, with a new evil ghost in order to attack and establish all of these measures and justify spraying literal poison on you.
So it has to be population control, right? It just has to be straight up population control.
That's the only thing that I can come to. That's literally the only thing.
I know you got an order for these things, but do you have in your notes the stuff where it shows all the different rates of West Nile in the different cities? Because I think that's one of the things that kind of drove your case was that the places that were getting doused with these chemicals weren't really seeing improvement in.
I'm gonna show the.
Okay, cool.
But here's this. So this is important whenever you're looking at like a specific chemical. If you want the no bullshit answers, look up the material safety data sheet.
Yeah, I'm sure if you've ever worked in a kitchen or worked with freaking cleaning materials and stuff like that, you know what the this hazard safety sheet stuff is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Vector control is any method to limit or eradicate the mammals, birds, insects, or other arthropods, here collectively called vectors, which transmit disease pathogens. Most vector control, mosquito control using. Yep. So wait, inhalation, they said remove the person. So if you start breathing this stuff, you shouldn't be breathing this stuff.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
And then like the freaking cops in New York are just like, oh, just close your doors, no big deal. Like you shouldn't be anywhere near this stuff. It's just, and you said this.
No, go take. There's studies behind this. Pesticide exposure, the hormonal function of the female reproductive system.
So that's
Here's another really scary one with the pyrethroids. Again, insecticide exposure, cognitive development disabilities in children. Again, this shit is really not good.
So now on this to this point, I do want to say that they actually make a reference to kind of dumbing down our nation so that you have plenty of low skill labor available. So that's kind of where my head is on this. If we've already established that they are using these pesticides for harm, it stands to reason that they're deliberately trying to dumb down the population as well. So it's like not even surprising to me. It's not a mistake, it's a feature.
To get rid of mosquitoes. They say there are no health concerns, but people who are sensitive to pesticides or want to avoid
what does that mean, sensitive to pesticides?
Exposure can stay
they're
inside
basically
during the
kind
spraying.
of
This happening in
saying that
areas
you're a
of
pussy
Manhattan and the
if
Bronx from 8:30 tonight until 6 tomorrow morning. These maps show the areas being sprayed. The health department applies pesticides every summer to reduce the number of mosquitoes and lessen the risk of mosquito-borne diseases.
Well, there's more on this stuff, but
oh yeah. Well, you have the different cities, right? Because I thought one of the craziest things was that you told me about DC.
Right. So I'll pull up the note. So this is the source that I found. I shared this with T-Lav. I'm pretty sure he did a segment on it yesterday, but this is the No Spray Coalition. Now it's making me do a CAPTCHA, verifying I'm not a robot.
Totally right, Joe, by the way.
I really want to, the reason it's important to point this out is because people have been on this for years. 23 years on. New York City to spray toxic pesticides all over. No, there's an updated.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
Sorry.
Challenging New York City's toxic pesticide spray program, now in its 24th year in a row.
Oh, so my God.
For the 24th year, New York City's pesticide spray program, dousing New Yorkers and the entire ecosystem with toxic pesticides, continues with no end in sight. Unlike its dramatic beginnings with Mayor Rudolph Giuliani providing daily updates from his World Trade Center bunker, the current spraying receives little to no notice or fanfare. The No Spray Coalition continues its fight against this toxic pesticide spraying. The organization won a lawsuit in 2007 against the spraying, including the settlement by the city admitting to its harmful impact. Yet the indiscriminate spraying continues. So this is it, guys. What are you going to do when your judicial system you can't? What happens when you?
It doesn't. Yeah, they don't even care. There's no regulation to stop it. They're like, "Yep, you're right. It's poisonous. Suck it up."
People deserve to at least know how and why they will be sprayed with these harmful chemicals, and yet there remains little insufficient notification. There is sparse, if any, media coverage. I just showed you a video with like 600 views or something like that.
Yeah.
The only way for the public to be alerted about this is like the spraying is to like come across a flyer or something. And there's tons of flyers in New York City. You're not going to ever be notified, but no one's going to ever know this is coming.
Right.
Everyone I speak to, no one knows anything about this. Elected officials have taken a hands-off approach to the point where they don't even notify their constituents.
That's fucked up.
16 adulticide. I just counted 22 for you. 16 adulticiding events have taken place since July 24th. That includes Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, the Staten Island.
Dude. So it's like you have to think if they're not warning anybody, then like you have to be cynical about it, right? You have to assume that they're not doing it to help people. They're doing it to
close your windows. Stay inside.
Like, they're putting you deliberately in harm's way because you can't show me this stuff and be like, okay, here's a bunch of stuff proving that this stuff is harmful. And then they're like gassing you with stuff that's meant to be on a top of a crop duster from a fucking pickup truck.
Mayor Rudy Giuliani gave daily ludicrous updates from his World Trade Center bunker. Continues 3 mayors later with Mayor Eric Adams. The pyrethroid, we just showed the danger of the pyrethroid pesticides being sprayed have been shown to be harmful to human health and the ecosystem, which includes animals, birds, wildlife, insects, and more, which kill off the natural predators of these mosquitoes, which include dragonflies and bats, and the spraying will occur by truck with pesticides following from the back of it. So since its inception, the spray program to kill mosquitoes said to be carrying the West Nile virus has never been properly reviewed by any city, despite the continued use of toxic, harmful, and carcinogenic chemicals over the city's population and environment. The city spraying pyrethroid pesticides, Anvil 10 plus 10 plus Duet. I'll show the other one a little bit. Equally harmful, containing not only synthetic sumethrin but cancer-causing pyrethropotoxide. So in 2021,
straight up carcinogens.
You want to see something really sad?
I mean, what have you shown me so far? This is the good
news. So in 2021, let me show you the lawsuit real quick.
It's just wild to me when like you have just a little bit of information. You know, you could show people freaking like 1 or 2 of those things showing that it's harmful, and like I don't think anybody would be for pesticides if they knew what the fuck was going on. They would read like they could probably Google some of this shit, like use Google of all search engines to come to the same conclusion that pesticides are harmful. And it's just so like swept under the rug and not talked about. Really kind of.
This is what's amazing to me. Like I really appreciate the fact that like Tyler Fisher, like he's a good comedian too. He does a good Trump impression. But the fact that he people can like now that like we're in like in a post-truth, like post-COVID era, like people can be like pointing out things like saying like, hey, that's strange, and then we like start to question it, and then we learn more about it, and then we learn more and more shit that our government is doing to us behind our backs, completely behind our backs, and we don't know. Yeah, they're just spraying poison on us now. They're just literally spraying poison. Look, in fact, there's no evidence the number of mosquitoes, let alone those that carry the West Nile virus, has ever been diminished by the pesticide spray.
Oh my God.
For 24 years. That may seem counterintuitive, but in fact, studies show that the mosquitoes, after spraying in larger numbers than before, which are now resistant to the pesticides.
So they're super
Meanwhile, the pesticides not only cause cancer and disrupt your endocrine system, but they're greatly reducing sperm counts. Same thing they're doing with the water. And this shit gets in the water supply. So in 2000, Joe Coffin, New York City Environmental Law Justice Project, in conjunction with the No Spray Coalition, all these groups joined together by Beyond Pesticides, Disabled in Action. All of these groups, these activist groups, have been on this for a while.
It's important
to highlight these guys because they don't get any. This doesn't get any. No one's going to talk about this. No one is going to talk about this. I guarantee you won't see this on the fucking Vanguard.
I wonder if this is the same sort of shit.
Besides us and T-Lab, and maybe that's it. No one will call this shit out because it's the same thing with the COVID narrative. People don't want to have that like thought in their head that like
the government's acting like out to kind of kill us.
And like evil, that they're like literally like that they're literally deliberately spraying poison on us for like what seems like whatever, like I don't know what intended purpose is. You can only come to your own conclusion is population
depopulation, lower IQs,
and they link
sterilization.
So part of the 2007 decision in the No Spray Coalition's lawsuit, the city admitted, signed in writing, stipulated that the pesticides may remain in the environment beyond their intended purpose, cause adverse health effects, kill mosquitoes and natural predators, increase mosquitoes' resistance, and are not improved for direct applications to waterways. This shit gets in the water. The way that they're able to get a settlement out of this is because of the Clean Water Act that Nixon signed, that Nixon put into place.
Same guy who started the EPA.
It's not just in the air, guys. It's not just closing your windows. Like this shit's in the water supply too.
Yeah, it can't get away from it. It just sits. It just gets in everything. You know, I wonder if they're going. I wonder, like, you know, we showed the video in my segment with the pipes and the freaking tiny homes. I wonder if they'd have some sort of like modified version of this crap that they'd freaking just douse people. Like, I'm like waiting for the point where we find out that like this like anvil shit is like connected to like Pfizer or Moderna or something like that, and like it's all fucking.
Oh, that's an interesting angle.
I mean, that's kind of where I'm thinking. I'm like, who's making money off of this?
I might do more research. I'm really glad that I found this group though, and this is like a really informative website, nospray.org. Again, this is really talks. They have the studies. They link it all. They have it linked. These are peer reviewed studies. You can't get away from this, guys. The city admitted and signed in writing that this shit is cancer causing. It reduces your sperm counts, and if you're pregnant or you have pets, you might be in danger. New Yorkers have filed numerous complaints. Many of their pets died as well. And yet city officials have said that they couldn't find anyone sickened by the spraying, despite evidence provided in court that the plaintiffs had thousands of calls to pesticide hotlines. The same officials who certified that the air was safe after 9/11. Remember that? That what's his name fought for? I don't even know his name.
John Stewart. Yeah.
Toxicologist Dr. Robert Simone, who took soil samples from around the city following the first year of spraying and around those, the testimony in court was extremely damning to the city's spray program, states the only solution is another lawsuit against the New York City Department of Health. They do not care what they think, and they will not respond unless a judge tells them to. The current spraying is the same pattern of disrespect for the law that they have shown since they started spraying.
Okay, so Department of Health. So I'm thinking more.
It's the same thing.
It's more that 1984 shit where it's like Department of Defense is Department of War, Department of Health is actually Department of Sickness. Like it's just, I'm just like no faith in our government whatsoever.
We can also apply this to like COVID. I don't think people want to like have that thought that they're like health officials are this corrupt that they're willing to jeopardize their physical health and bodies for what is essentially, blatant disregard. I mean, probably.
That's why I'm wondering who's getting paid off of spraying all that shit.
Probably. Here's Delta Methrin.
And exactly, Team
Other pyrethroid. This is the Delta. This is the other one that they're spraying around.
I'd want to know if you keep going down this whole who's getting paid off of producing these chemicals.
This shit attacks your nervous system of the animal. You can spread it through your skin. So if you get it, it's able to pass through a woman's skin through her blood.
Is able to pass from a woman's skin through her blood and into.
Deltamethrin is able to pass from a woman's skin through her blood and into her breast milk.
Oh my God. That's crazy. I mean, we've talked about endocrine disruptors in the past, so it's not even like that, like wild of a thing to consider anymore. He's just like, oh, here's another thing that they're trying to freaking weaponize and freaking kill us with, and make us stupid and all, and make us sterile. And that was another thing I was thinking. It was like, there's been a number of kind of articles that come out periodically, like, oh, men have low testosterone, or men have like low sperm count and stuff like that. And I'm like,
you wonder why that is.
Yeah, and they're like, why is it happening? Just like pretending like it's not shit like this. You know, like I would draw a straight line between, you know, low T and low freaking sperm count to something like the pesticides. You know, I would see that connection, especially if they've been doing it for fucking decades. You know, in the biggest cities in our country, stands to reason that there could be an appreciable amount where they are actually doing population control at a level that they can recognize. You know, obviously they're not going to fucking publish any studies that show us they're doing population control, but I bet that they can show that they're killing off, you know, X million people per so many years or whatever to make it a good investment for the city and the grifters.
This is just an interesting source from all the way 2020. I can bet you that like they would, like if someone got West Nile, they would report it as COVID-19.
I remember that. Yeah.
Coronavirus or West Nile, the CDC reported 17 cases of mosquito disease. So what the actual cases, and I wish I had the actual statistic up. So the actual danger of this West Nile virus is essentially you can get it, but your chance of infection is 1 in 5. And then out of the people who get infected, it's like maybe mild symptoms. But after
so it's not even that.
Yeah,
you recover from it.
So do this math. You have a 1 in 5 chance of getting infected, and then you have a 1 in 10 chance of dying. So do that math. That's like
so 10% of 20%.
Yeah.
So you have like a 2% chance. Was that like a 2% chance of dying from West Nile? So
that's even if you get it.
What? Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the overall, like 20%. So you have 20%, 1 out of 5, and then you have 10% of that, which would be 2%, right? Yeah.
Something like that. It's like around 1%.
Crazy.
Possible. They're like, do you see how they're blowing this up?
Did you have something else up? Oh, maybe you got to pull up a new window.
Oh,
I know.
I'm going to play this again.
City has reported its first cases of West Nile virus this year. Health Department. City has reported its first cases of West Nile virus this year. Health Department says 3 people have tested positive, taken to the hospital, but are okay. 2 are from Queens, 1 is from Manhattan. A 4th person in Staten Island is being investigated for possible West Nile virus. The Health Department says the virus has been found in mosquitoes across all 5 boroughs. Officials continue spraying for mosquitoes and encourage everyone to wear.
So let me get this straight. 3 people. So this is not even like, they don't even have like a diagnosis. They have 3 people who just tested positive. That's it. The 4th person, they don't even know.
I wonder if they were given a PCR test for that.
And then all 4 of them are okay. They don't even have symptoms. They went to the hospital and they got sent home because they didn't do what happened to them.
So why are they even turning it into a story? They're just freaking people out unnecessarily.
Here's more fear-mongering.
Switching over to your health alert. The El Paso Department of Public Health has now confirmed a 3rd case of the neuroinvasive West Nile virus. This time, it's a woman in her 20s who have contracted the virus, but since she had no underlying conditions, she has already been released from the hospital. Health officials, though, are reminding you to follow the 4 Ds to fight the bite. They are use repellents with DEET, Wear long sleeves and pants when outdoors. Take extra care during peak mosquito biting hours from dusk until dawn. And finally, number 4, drain all standing water.
Again, this shit gets in the water. Guys, here's the CDC. This is West Nile virus. Fortunately, most people infected with West Nile virus do not feel sick. They don't even get symptoms. About
They
one
don't even know that they have it. Yeah.
My math was wrong. It's even smaller than that. About 1 in 5 people who get infected get any symptoms at all. Only 1 in 5 people get any symptoms. And then 1 out of 150 people who get infected actually die. So do that math. Like 1 in 5 people who actually get infected, that 150 of those people will die. So
so that's like
this is not something.
Was it 0.75%?
For us to be spraying for 24 years it's actually kind of ridiculous. Again, this is not just,
and they have no evidence of showing that it's actually effective.
They have they have peer-reviewed science where the CDC admits themselves. Go check out nospray.org. I'll type it in the chat now to get information on all this, because this might be coming to your city too. This is in Florida. Look.
Crazy. Did you have something else to pull up? Another video?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What they're using has been used all across the state.
Miami-Dade uses an pesticide called Nile to fight the spread of Zika. That came following recommendations from the CDC and the state health department. Palm Beach County Mosquito Control also uses Nile for aerial sprays, but not to target Zika. But some studies, even a quick CDC search, shows some scary health risks associated with the pesticide, especially our nervous system.
You don't want to go out and eat Nile.
But Dr. Bill Laudo says you shouldn't be paranoid about the potential reactions. He's an environmental biogeochemist.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't eat it, but
it's fine. Let's see what knowledge.
This is so psycho, dude. Oh my God! Yeah, see, I would.
The Zika virus may have already been resistant to many of the less toxic pesticides, so the CDC and others have moved towards Nile, which is an organophosphate pesticide used primarily for adult mosquito control. It's neurotoxic. When inhaled, may cause acute illness, including runny nose, coughing. This is not good for you. Skin contact can cause swelling. The site of contact, involuntary muscle contractions. If you have the eyes, it can cause stinging and blurred vision. Within hours of exposure, you can get nausea or vomiting, diarrhea, sweating, weakness, slurred speech. It can trigger acute poisoning. Long-term neurodevelopmental abnormalities in children. I showed you that study as well. This shit is not good. It's not good. And that what I just showed you was in Florida.
Yeah, it's like what? There's no argument. They're basically trying to sell us on just being like, oh, do this because we say so, and like you don't even have to do, like you've got some good stuff here, but like anybody, if they were aware of how like they're actually doing this pesticide program, and it's kind of crazy, like just doing like. They can come across this information pretty quickly if they just knew that there was a problem to begin with, you know?
This is New York. Just from June. They've reported no cases of West Nile virus this year. So why are we? So what's the point of this pesticide? I'm like,
dude, you have to like. I mean. You saw my segment. I'm of the cynical opinion that, and this is kind of what I was saying before, you know, with the report on Iron Mountain and kind of like how we always have to be in this state of war, where it's like if we're not waging war with other people, we still have to create a war because we still have to freak out the population and everybody in government wants to is a Malthusian and wants everybody to die. You know, they want to get the population down to below 1 billion people. And yeah, teamwork are definitely someone's getting the kickback. That's kind of what I was kind of getting at earlier. Whereas, like, as I was kind of presenting, where there's obviously a grift with the FEMA camps, that there's obviously a grift going on here where these pesticides, you know, there's a company that's getting paid millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to provide these chemicals to these cities. You know, somebody's getting paid just killing people, just like sterilizing people.
You don't think these pesticide companies have an interest? You don't think the New York City, like the pesticide mosquito control, doesn't want their contracts to keep coming? Of course they do.
Exactly.
This is the really tragic part. Look at this. So, like, this is from 2021. New York City bans pesticides in parks with push from unlikely force. Children, kindergartners, a bunch of kindergartners now in 7th grade worked for years to urge the city council to approve a ban on pesticides in parks, playgrounds, and other spaces. From the Black Institute,
these kids know about glyphosate.
Nice. These are children. These are kindergartners advocating for no spray, for stopping this.
Good for them. For people who don't know what glyphosate is, I saw that on one of the things. That's what Monsanto uses.
Lawmakers voted unanimously to make New York the nation's largest city to ban toxic pesticides from routine use by city agencies and to push its parks to control weeds, insects, and vermin with a nature-based techniques to organic gardening. As soon as the law goes into effect, 30 days when Mayor de Blasio signs it, they can effectively ban it.
Oh, that's funny. You know what this reminds me of? It's like freaking Bill Gates making the argument, telling people that they're stupid for thinking that like planting more trees is going to reduce CO2. It's like, why don't we just have better like organic techniques to do stuff? And it's like, no, that's stupid. We want to poison people instead.
Keep this in mind. I won't have to worry anymore if I'm just running around that there might be pesticides there, said Jesse Baltham, 12 years old, one of the original activist students.
Yes.
Guess what? In 2021, after the New York City unanimously passed the bill, it was intended to reduce the use of pesticides, yet the New York City Department of Health can issue itself waivers due to the provision
of
pesticide laws, thereby setting into motion the spraying of toxic pesticides in residential areas and public parks and streets. They're doing it anyway. They're going to keep on doing it anyway. The law's not going to help you. They already paid out a settlement. What are they going to do? What are you going to do when the judicial system is completely frozen? It's exactly like Chris had just said. Like it's like the gears of like social program, like any sort of like help for working class. It's stuck. It can't possibly
completely
provide.
Co-opted by private interests, capital interests. Be curious what these waivers were for. Too, it's like what waivers? You had like a bunch of kids showing you that it was like dangerous, and they didn't want to be around it, and they're like, "What was the waiver? Like, fuck these kids." Okay, check.
I might be interested in like interviewing like one of these people, but like,
dude, they got tons of knowledge. You said they've been doing this stuff for like 20 years, and it's only gotten worse. It's just crazy. You know, but I don't
just want to see that map where I was.
Looks like population control to me, man.
I want to make it clear Washington, D.C. is one of the only like major cities that don't do this.
And has never done it, right?
Yeah, you have to wonder why that is.
Yeah. Do you remember what the rate of West Nile is in DC as well?
It's effectively, they did a study between major cities that do the spray and that they don't do the spray. I just showed it before. They don't have any there's no
correlation. Yeah.
In fact, it makes it worse. It actually makes it worse because the mosquitoes get resistant to the pesticides, and they come back in bigger numbers.
I remember you showing me something where it showed like DC actually has a higher rate of West Nile anyway, like 6-1 or something like that.
I wish I had that.
But so okay, well then I'll just say like for most rate, all these big cities have an under 2 per 100,000 people West Nile rate, and DC it's over 6 per 100,000 people, ostensibly because DC there's a lot of politicians flying all over the world. I would think that like that's like a good reason why there might be bigger more cases of West Nile in DC, and I think that kind of makes the case that even the politicians and the rich fucks all in DC know that this stuff is so bad for you that it's like, oh no, like definitely not for us. And we know that West Nile is like you're gonna be fine if you just like take some antibiotics and have some soup and take it easy if you have any symptoms. Like it's just I thought that was one of the like really big points there. It was like to make like the really cynical points there is like even the politicians don't want to be around this shit at all.
That's that's the extent of like what I had. Perhaps I'll get into this more if I can find like more development.
Follow the money, man.
Yeah. I mean, of course. I mean, there's more research to be done. I'm on this. T-Lab seems to be on this. So, hopefully we can get more people that are aware of this. And again, Bronx, tomorrow, stay inside because they're going to spray you. This shit is not good. It is not good.
Yeah, and it just, dude, that's so messed up. It's tough today.
Really
tough.
cynical.
Just feels like one thing after another. I would love for the day to be like, oh, we're just having good stories today. Feel good stories today. Nope, not going to happen.
Well, this is the news.
Yeah, this news is not propaganda.
We literally live in like a dystopian like post-capitalist.
Well, it's like the videos you were showing in the beginning, showing the trucks going down the street, pumping like freaking smoke clouds in the air. Remind me of something out from
that's
Escape
like
from New York.
Yeah. It's bad.
Like a fucking John Carpenter movie. Jesus Christ.
It's bad. Yeah.
But
that was what we had for today. It was kind of like a weird scheduling thing to do like in the middle of the day. I happen to work from home on Tuesday, so I'm like a little bit more flexible and I could do this. But thankfully, we did the show anyway because we had the notes. So
we had the notes. Want to bust it out and
just bust it out. Just have the content out there. Just have people aware. Just because like that shit's really like all this shit is really bad. People should be like understanding this on like a deeper level. That's all I'm saying. We appreciate everyone who came out here.
And we're going to follow up with all these topics, like obviously the stuff in Lahaina and the stuff with the FEMA camps. That's obviously going to develop over the next few months.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing I would think with like the pesticides, like, I think
I'm really hoping that more people become aware of that issue because it's again, like there's an activist on the ground.
Well, and it also, it makes me think, you saw like the gas pipes in the tiny home villages, and you see kind of what's going on here with the pesticides. Like they're continuously trying to figure out ways to just like freaking make our lives miserable and poison us.
But like, who knows? Like, what else are they doing to us? It makes you wonder. Like, what else?
What do we not know?
What else? Like, what else are they doing that we don't know? And these are questions like that we should be asking ourselves. But if you're here, if you're checking this out later, be sure to like and subscribe, whatever you can do to help us boost in the algorithm. We're hitting 2K soon, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, I've seen some
American traditions going on tonight. You'll be able to see Jesse Jet. I'm pretty sure he's doing like some sort of like dedication to like my rest in peace account because again, guys, I was banned.
Oh, man.
I was suspended from Twitter today. After this, I'm probably going to go cry because I'm kidding. But like, I was really blown away from this is not something that like I didn't get any warning. I didn't like there's no coming back from this. I tried.
Okay, so it doesn't say permanently suspended. Did they give you another email saying you could appeal again in 30 days?
I tried appealing and they rejected me 3 times. So I'm not sure if it's coming back. I'm hoping that it's going to come back. And, if you can, follow me on my new account, Big Mac Crab 2, the sequel. I'm bigger, madder, and crabbier, baby. All right.
Okay. Right on, man.
All right.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Otherwise, we will be continuing on regular schedule. I don't think we're trying to switch to afternoons.
No, we'll be back on Monday. Be sure to check out American Tradition.
Yep.
Jesse Jet tonight. INN News tomorrow. You got a lot of content coming up. So, thanks, guys. Like,
have a
subscribe,
good night, everybody.
God bless. Have a good night.